It's quite something. He's really dead behind the eyes.
Yeah, do you think for Christmas he's asked for a soul?
No, he's going on holiday.
I know he is. I'm really worried he's going to the same place as me. I'll bump into him on the beach or something.
That'd be nice. Well, no, so my family want to go swimming in the sea. I said that's a terrible idea.
Yeah, it's a bad idea.
That's a
I don't know why people do things like that.
No, I don't know either. No. I'm looking forward to getting home. If I ever get home, Simon Calder said leave now. So that's what I'm going to do. Crack on. Alex Phillips is up next. Thanks ever so much for your company this morning. I wish you a very happy Christmas. Also, particularly to those people who are spending Christmas on their own, thinking of you. Happy Christmas to you all.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Well, hello, good morning. It is Christmas Eve. Are you excited? If you're not, you probably don't have a soul, which means that, well, you might be related to Keir Starmer. Welcome to the show. I'm Alex Phillips. You are with Talk on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, on your connected devices, on YouTube, and on our app. Download it for Christmas if you haven't done so already. It's free. Now, coming up in the show, Reform UK believes that they could overtake the Tories in membership numbers within just a month, following the release of figures that reveal they are just 11,000 members away. Rachel may be forced to initiate a new tax hike next year. Woohoo! Happy New Year, ladies and gentlemen. Following a downgrade in growth that's pushed Britain right to the edge of recession, 0.0% growth. We were only at 0.3%, but at least we had something, a tiny, little minuscule thing. Now, boom, gone. We're going in reverse, probably. Experts have cautioned that the Chancellor could be compelled to act after the official economic growth forecast for the third quarter of 2024 was revised down to nil point. The Ministry of Defence has revealed that only one-fifth of British armed forces are not medically fit for combat. A total 13,522 personnel from the Royal Navy, the Army and the Royal Air Force are classified as medically not deployable. I thought you had to do all that sort of, jumping around, climbing under nets, hoiking up ropes and stuff like that to get into the armed forces. Do they not make you carry on doing it? Do they just go, now you've done that, have a load of pasties, don't worry about it? And showbiz editor at The Sun, Hannah Hope, will be joining us at the end of the show to give us a Christmas entertainment rundown. This is Talk. Welcome to the home of common sense. And I'm pleased to say I am joined by former Conservative government advisor Claire Pearsall for the whole 3 hours. Claire, it's lovely to have you in the studio. We both have done our best, haven't we, to
very
look festive. I know.
It's a team message, seriously.
Either festive Republican or Labour Party.
Not that.
Definitely not the last.
No.
Anything but the last. Yeah. Let's rattle through some of the stories, shall we? Royal Mail have been accused of faking deliveries. One assumes this is all down to targets. This is in order to preserve yearly bonuses. Postal workers claimed they've been told to record some parcel deliveries as inaccessible, even if they've never attempted to deliver the item. That means customer operations managers would still receive their mid-year bonuses, understood to be based in part on, there you go, hitting targets for the number of parcels that leave Royal Mail depots. Now, the thing I've got with this, I'm sure my postman is a lovely gentleman. I just never get to meet him because once upon a time the Royal Mail used to come before you went to work.
Oh, yeah.
Before you left the house. Now it's like a sort of random time of day. You don't even know when they're going to be around. So when you know you've got a parcel being delivered by the Royal Mail, you're like, well, I'll get that when I go pick it up from the depot in about 3 years' time. This morning I left my house and I sort of wrote in Sharpie on a big piece of paper, sellotape to my door, if you come and I'm not in, leave it with number 8 because, it's Christmas. I need those things.
And I think that's where the majority of people are. And your neighbours are pretty good. I've got really good sets of neighbours. We take parcels in for each other all the time. But you never know when the postman's going to come. We had some post delivered at 8 p.m. the other day.
It's so random.
Why? Why not do it in the morning? Where was he in the morning? If this is his normal round, and he's a very lovely postman, we've seen him a few times, absolutely lovely chap, but you sort of think, well, what are you doing for the rest of the day that you have to be there at 8 p.m. at night? Surely for him that's not great.
Yeah, and also, when it's letters, obviously fit for your letterbox, but previously I'm pretty sure that the standard thing was, if you're not in, we deliver to a neighbour. Yeah. And most other places most Amazon delivery drivers tend to do that, not always, but most do. Some of them just leave it in your bin, weirdly.
Yes.
But Royal Mail, you have to now go through the faffery of having missed it, go online, go to this, redeliver it on a different day altogether, then pick it, and then if they're not in, because you don't know if your neighbour's going to be in at the random time of day that they're going to pick. It's like ping pong, isn't it, with Royal Mail? You're like, you're holding my parcel hostage, just give it to anybody who's in the street.
But also, it tells you to nominate a safe place. So I thought, well, I had to do a redelivery, and I thought, well, OK, let's have a look at a safe place if they can't deliver it. In my back garden is a pretty good bet. But the options were shed, porch, conservatory. I have none of these items.
They give you a drop-down menu, and you're like, what if I've got something that is not on the list, but you don't really have the other option,
and I didn't, so I said shed, and then I put helpfully in notes, please leave by the back door, because it's a secure place. I live in a village, it's a very secure place. It's absolutely fine to do that. The back gate was open. Everybody's now knowing that my back gate is open. But, it was stupid. The list was pathetic. I don't have a conservatory, and if I did, surely that would be locked, because that's access to my house.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was just a really random list of things. But
the other thing that drives me mad while we're on the subject of Royal Mail is that when you're sort of, because in my house, I live in a terrace, and when someone knocks anyone's door, you think it's your door. Yeah. Anyway, you're waiting for something, and then you hear the knock on the door, and it's always when you're in the bath or putting your makeup on or something, and so you go as fast as you can, like Roadrunner, all the way down the stairs, and you get there, and it's the bit of paper, and you're like, what is the time range in which you give before you... Because in theory, they fill out the form before they put it in. Either they've got the quickest handwriting in the world, or they've just decided, but before they've even got to your door, that you're not in. Because I need some sort of special rope, like the milk tray man, to swing out and snatch it.
I mean, that would be fun, wouldn't it? To actually sort of swing down and scoop the parcel out of their hands.
Fireman's pole, give it.
But they're 12 digits long, those reference numbers. So you just sort of think, how have you done that by squinting at the parcel in the first place? I'd have to go and find my glasses to start with and write it down. But most people have really good neighbours. And you think the amount that you have to spend on postage going through Royal Mail... You expect it to be back at least attempted, not just sort of scanned and said, "Oh, we can't be bothered." So
I feel a bit sorry.
On a bit.
I feel a bit sorry for Royal Mail though, because back in the good old days when they delivered stuff and on time, they were allowed to deliver stuff and on time. That's the thing. It was actually an EU Postal Services directive that broke up the Royal Mail and said, right, everyone can now compete for parcels delivery, and that's how they earned their cash money.
Yes.
And of course now no one gets letters anyway because we're digitised, and the Royal Mail are just sort of picking up the scraps at the bottom, and we all expect them to be as brilliant as they ever were when they've been cut to the bone, hemorrhaging money, and I kind of miss it.
Yeah, I do, especially when you look at some of the companies that have taken over deliveries. I had one who sent me a message saying, "We've delivered your parcel at 10:20 at night," and sent a photograph of somewhere that was not my house and a little map to say, yep, it's here, definitely here. So at 11:20, I could be found walking round the village to locate my parcel on someone else's doorstep.
There's one particular company, I think it's DPD, that are sort of weirdly specific in their timings. They say, we'll deliver your parcel between 15:39 and 14:08.
Yeah.
And you're like... That is not even a round number. That's very odd. How did you come to that figure? Talking about coming to figures, Reform hopes to get 11,000 more members, which means that they would overtake the Conservative membership figure. Conservatives, 131,680 members, apparently. Reform, 120,549. That was at noon on Monday. And they think that they might be able to leapfrog the Tories within a month.
I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised. Reform are offering different things to the Conservative Party. They are making themselves more relevant. They're making themselves available to the youth market, which the Conservatives seem to have forgotten and have done for at least the last 20 years. They seem exciting and different. I think it's a piece of top trolling to have an online counter every time somebody signs up, that it goes over. I've seen it on social media, and I think that is superb to see it in visual, sort of real time. But what's it going to do? You need to be able to turn those membership people into volunteers, and then into votes and into electoral success. So yeah, having a membership system that is large is great. Are these people going to come out and deliver leaflets for you? Are they going to stand as candidates in local elections? Are they going to stand at the next general election? That's what you need to look at. You need to start forming that base, forming your membership into something
What's
useful.
interesting, though, I was out for a really good dinner last night with an American TV exec, a big cohort of us. Every time he comes to UK, he gathers people together to find out what's going on over on our little island. And there are a number of pollsters and journalists there. And all the pollsters, they just, Nigel could be Prime Minister by next time round. And once upon a time, that would have seemed absurd. It would have been like, oh, come on now, that's, whatever. But people are just saying it quite calmly now. And I think with these things, with narratives in the media, is when they're picked up and just, constantly repeated, they become fait accompli. I think about Labour winning the general election. Now, we know that Sir Keir Starmer got far fewer votes even than Jeremy Corbyn when he lost the election. A few of them, 1 in 20 people of the voting population actually voted for Labour, and yet they've got this massive majority. And I wonder if the media hadn't sort of said for months and months all that year, oh well, Labour's just going to win the next election, Labour's going to win the next election, and it had been handled differently, whether the result would have been different, because very often this stuff seeps into the public consciousness and they think, I'm not going to bother voting because they're not going to win anyway, you end up with a distorted result.
You do, and I think people are fed up with politics, so a lot of people didn't vote, so hence why you get this enormous swing to Labour. I think a lot of the Conservative votes either went to Reform or just stayed at home, quite simply. Whether Nigel Farage can be Prime Minister, remains to be seen, because I think there's an awful lot to be done in between now and whenever the next general election's going to be. But you shouldn't ever write them off, and it really does irritate me when people just go, oh, it's a flash in the pan.
Yeah.
It isn't, and you're not listening to what's going on in the politics world.
I mean, I used to work with Nigel a lot. I was his right-hand woman for a long period of time. And if there's one thing I should say about him, he is spookily prescient when it comes to politics and knowing what's going to happen. And he said to me a number of years ago now, the next election, the Tories will lose it, Labour will get a big majority, we will get a foothold in Parliament, and the election after that we can win it. He said this a number of years ago. And at the time even I thought, all right, that's a bit optimistic, but, you know... But I know by now that actually when he says this is winnable or this is going to happen, he gets it right every time. He puts issues on the agenda. You know, you look at the narratives now. I remember when I first started working with him, and he was just like, I want to leave the EU, and people were like, oh, you can't, you racist, you monster. Well, now we've left the EU, and then he used to speak about the increase in crime when you had the accession of Eastern European countries. Oh, you can't say that. He sets narratives. He says things before other people dare to say them. He actually shifts the Overton window. And I think what's happened now, especially with Elon Musk buying X, is that Overton window, what is acceptable to say out loud and publicly, where political conviction has moved, has now gone very much onto the reform bit of the spectrum. The Tories are going to have to scramble to catch up. But the problem is people will look at the last 14 years and say, well, you know, you did that. You did the immigration figures.
They will, and I think that is the problem the Conservatives have, is that they haven't covered themselves in glory. They started off very strongly way back in 2010 in those early days of the coalition, and you sort of thought, OK, this is a party getting back into power. But it went wrong over the last probably 6 or 7 years when you start looking at it. The way Brexit was handled, the way the public were treated for voting for Brexit, just gave the impression that the party didn't care. And I think that has stuck with them. But what Reform have got to do is actually appeal to a wider audience than they have at the moment, because they have got a broad base. They did get an awful lot of votes at the last election. Was it 4 million people voted for Reform? That's enormous. However, that was at that particular moment, and you've got to build that momentum going forward. You've got to look at the areas that you weren't perhaps as strong, and what's your messaging going to be? Nigel is one of those people that's very adept at changing the message slightly for each place, but it's a big ask to change that across all of those constituencies.
Yeah, it is indeed. But, you know, it's going to be an interesting political period we're entering now. And, well, let's see what happens when it comes to donations to the party, whether Elon Musk does actually assign a big charity cheque addressed to one Mr. NP Farage. But before we move on, actually, what do you make of what I consider to be multifaceted gerrymandering by the Labour Party? All of the things that they're suggesting, we might not have those May elections because we might want to restructure authorities. OK, all right, Banana Republic tyrant. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, we might have to look into the rules about donations to political parties. This is after we know the Labour Party themselves have taken donations from people who are from abroad, essentially. And then it's like, wow, we might have to move the voting age down to 16. What other trick are you going to pull up out of your sleeve to try and make sure you stay in power? It's disturbing. I think we should be alarmed as the public that they're trying to do this. If this was happening in an African nation, we'd be like, wow, you know, that's corrupt.
Yes, it is. And it always reminds me of my son being younger and playing Monopoly, where he was losing, he didn't like it, so he decided to change the rules to make it fairer for him, not for anybody else playing. That was by the by. And this is what strikes me with Keir Starmer, that let's lower the voting age because young people want to vote. But he's completely ignored the fact that the majority of young men are actually more right-wing. So what's that going to do for him? And then moving the local elections because you think you might like to restructure, or is it you're not going to win? Is that what you're really scared of?
It's one thing when you get the odd, periodical boundary change, which the Conservatives have whipped at from time to time, but to come into office and actually go after who actually is franchised to vote, whether elections even take place, and how parties can, what money they can receive. They're three quite big things. This isn't just tinkering around with the size of a constituency. And I think I do think it's alarming. And as per usual, the legacy media just sit there reporting it. And you kind of think, if it was a Conservative Party who said, we're going to put the voting age up to 25, frankly, because most people still live at home with their parents until that point. We're going to look at the way that the unions are funding the Labour Party. We're going to cancel the local elections because we think that, authorities are too X, Y. People are like, this is corrupt Prime Minister. Labour Party's doing it, and legacy media are just like,
It's almost as if they've not really paid attention. They haven't noticed. They don't want to notice. But they should. This is democracy. The elections are set. Local people have a right to decide who runs their local authority. The Labour Party shouldn't be telling them that they can't have that.
Yeah. No, I genuinely think it's gerrymandering of the worst order. Remember the petition?
Yes.
Oh, I remember the petition. Do you know where the petition's at now?
Oh, is it gone up to nearly 3 million?
It is over the 3 million mark. This is, of course, the petition that Some Bite Sol put in place, calling for the Prime Minister to resign. No, for there to be a general election. Apparently, it is going to be debated in Parliament on the 6th of January. Now, it will just be done as a novelty act. It will be sort of, putting paid. It'll put paid to the suggestion, but lip service as well to feigning democracy. And it will probably be treated as a bit of a knockabout and as a bit of a joke, I'd imagine.
I don't know, but I think because it's got so much attention now, so it'll be a debate in Westminster Hall, so you'll have a minister there who is going to regret their life choices at being a minister at that point. Because everybody that's got a problem is going to come into Westminster Hall and stand up and say that. So I think that they aren't going to get an easy ride, and it isn't going to be allowed to be just lip service. And because it's televised, we can all tune in to watch exactly what is said, who has said it, and what the minister does afterwards. So I think actually it's going to be quite interesting. It's not going to change anything. We aren't going to have a general election on the back of it. But I think that some of those contributions will be extremely useful when you look at what's going to happen with the May elections.
I think the only thing that have made that petition better than it was is if, a bit like the Queen's funeral, there was a queue to sign a physical copy of it. Someone sort of had a big sort of medieval style scroll standing outside Parliament, and a queue was snaking around the streets of London, and people coming from all over the country to put pen to paper. Well, there you go. There's an idea for the new year. If it's debated in Parliament and the general election doesn't happen, it's not going to. Then there you go. There's a fun little Phillips idea. We're going to take a short break now, but when we come back, we're going to be joined by Chief Political Commentator for The Independent, John Rentoul, to knock about some of these big political stories. Don't go anywhere.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hello there, welcome back to the show. Some of your messages before we hit up the phone line. Someone's saying Reform are now only 7,000 members away from the Conservatives. Oh, I think their little sort of social media ploy in pushing this is clearly working. And someone said, Leah, I was born in the summer of 1976. It was a monster summer. My dearest mother reminds me of the fact that she carried me through one of the hottest summers on record, and it totally ruined it for her. It's really quite monotonous, year after year after year. I wonder whether your dearest mother reminds you every Christmas of how you did the same. No, but she does remind me every single Christmas that she went into labour at 6 o'clock in the morning after, and I popped out at 12 minutes past. That's called efficiency for you. A 12-minute labour. Yeah.
That's impressive.
I know, always in a hurry, me, because I'm a Boxing Day baby. I think she just had a few too many sherries and too much turkey on Christmas Day, and I was just
there was no room.
Out.
Yeah, there was no room for you. That was it. You had to come out.
Or, you know, the taste for alcohol had begun, and I was just like, get me in there, let me join the party.
Started early.
Right, let's speak now to Anne, who's in Sussex. Hi, Anne. Hi, Anne. Right, Anne, my darling, you there? Oh, I can, yeah, it's like that. I think Anne might have gone to make a cup of tea, because I can actually hear what sounds like us in the background. Yeah. It's all very meta, this. It's like alternative universe, like one of those folds in time.
Yes. Yeah, it is. So we're in Anne's living room.
We are. We're here for Anne, but Anne's not here for us.
No.
Oh, it's interesting. We sit and listen. We might be able to hear what Anne's doing.
Social media ploy, pushing this is really working.
See, we are on loop. Yeah, it's just us, isn't it?
It is us.
Oh, well, I mean, we could spend the next sort of 5 minutes listening to if Anne comes.
We could.
Hearing us sort of say what we've already said a few minutes before repeated. But I think people would tune out. So let's do some messages instead. Here we go. Let's call this one up. So Leslie says they never include your door number when a photo is taken. Well, we're talking the Royal Mail, sorry.
No, that's
out of nowhere, someone's just tuned in. A photo taken of what? What are you on about? I hadn't noticed that. I don't like the photo thing. No. You know, when I get why they want proof of... You know, can't you just sign something? When you have to stand there and sort of hold your parcel like this, I don't want... I feel like it's a breach of my privacy.
Normally I'm wearing some ridiculous fluffy socks or slippers or something, which ends up in a photo. It's like, that's ridiculous. Yeah.
Hey, guess what? Anne's back. Hi, Anne.
Okay.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Anne. How are you, my darling?
Hello. I'm relaxing now, quietly listening to you both. And I can't stop listening. You're always discussing so many fascinating topics that are really relevant to what's going on. And you obviously talking about political parties. I just gave you a call because many years ago I stood as a lonely Liberal.
Right.
And I knew nothing at all about politics. And
neither do most Liberals.
Well, because there was just me, I just got on with it. And there were two or three things. I ended up as a Conservative, and I was really amazed because as a Liberal, because they're not a very big party, you could go to the House of Commons, you could meet people, and I went to their conference, and I must say the conferences put me right off being a Liberal, and then it changed SDP and all the rest of it. So it was not the Liberal bit, it was the later changes. And then I went into independence, and then I was invited to join the Conservatives. And what surprised me was what I was told in 1987 by the chairman of the district council. He said, when your own party doesn't support you, it's time to go. And he left. And what I discovered is central office were really part of the problem. And all the hard work that was being carried out by councillors around the country, they had an awful job to get all the information they needed and the support from central office. And when I studied politics much later, I realised why. Because a lot of people go into politics and they're a bit like Senegalis, behind the scenes, pulling the strings, but they're not doing the frontline work.
I think that's probably true of a lot of political parties. As someone who's been involved in political parties for a number of years, you often get the people who, because they're standing out on the street in marketplaces in atrocious weather, handing out leaflets, knocking on doors. It's quite gruelling stuff at times, isn't it?
They're the hard workers on the
Right,
street.
they are the foot soldiers, and very often I think they feel a sense of abandonment and frustration at the party
I think that happens
headquarters.
in the voluntary sector as well, but it's just the fact that you do need the central office or headquarters of any party to actually be efficient and knowing what's going on out in the field and what needs to be done.
Well, they do say, don't they, Claire, that the Liberal Democrats are pretty good as a grassroots organisation. But interestingly, what Anne's saying about, I was a Liberal, but I didn't really understand politics. When I look at the general election campaign, it drives me mad, right, that Ed Davey did nothing but fart around like a grown-up idiot, a baby, just falling off jet skis and waggling those foam tubes in a sort of swimming pool. And I was just like, it made a mock to me. He got 72 seats off the back of doing some sort of remake of Takeshi's Castle.
Yes.
And people, isn't it funny? Isn't it jolly? Ha ha ha, I like Ed David. Oh, he's so nice. Oh, I'm going to vote for him. And you just think this makes a mockery of our democracy. I'm sorry, but take it seriously. If people want to vote for him doing that, we can't stop that. But if he's the leader of a political party, he should take that seriously. And he should have done a proper campaign where he debated the issues, where he wasn't always on a... Because I'm pretty sure being on an expanse of water every time TV cameras were invited was a boon for him because they didn't get to ask any questions. They got all the exciting footage. It was a clever ploy.
And it was a clever ploy, and I think that was part of it. Especially when he was talking once about, I think it was children's mental health, whilst then going down a slip and slide in a rubber tube. And you just sort of think, on what planet do you think that's absolutely acceptable? Because that's a really serious subject. You could have actually expanded that. You could have gone to meet some young carers. You could have done anything else apart from some extra, exciting things on your bucket list.
This is what I find about so many of the sort of big party politicians now. They don't take it seriously. It's all a joke. It's all a game. It's all celebrity for ugly people, frankly. They want to be an MP. They want to be the big I am in their local area. They don't care about politics. They don't have any ideology. And they think the way to win over the public trust is to go on to, an ITV daytime programme and talk about, me and my kids went to Taylor Swift. I'm like, what about your policies? I mean, Sir Keir Starmer's general election was all about saying absolutely nothing but trying to pretend he was a human. And I'm fed up of this. I think we actually deserve to have politicians with convictions. Again, Kemi Badenoch, what she keeps saying is, I will let you know at the next general election what my policies are. And she used this analogy of, you don't say, I'm going to open a restaurant in 4 years. And when people say what's going to be on the menu, you tell them, you wait until the restaurant's opened. And I'm like, yeah, but they get to ask what sort of a restaurant is it?
Exactly.
It's, if I were putting planning permission in place, ask my local council, can I open a restaurant? They would say, well, what is it going to be serving before we let you,
Can't tell you.
You're the leader of the opposition. I'm afraid it's an absolute cop-out to say, well, I'm new here. I haven't decided what the policies are. You're going to have to wait. You're supposed to have an ideology. You're the leader.
Yes.
You are the director. You're now Commander-in-Chief of the Conservatives. So what does Badenochism look like? You can't just keep banging on about the culture wars. It's a safe space. It's a go-to, isn't it? Oh, well, men dressed up as women. Yes, Kemi, we're all angry about that. But what else?
Yeah, exactly. What are you doing about education? What are you doing about the Defence Service? What are you doing about planning? And I think all of those things are really important. You don't have to have a fully fleshed out plan if you've just come in, but you can say, my priorities are... and then list your top 3 priorities. Doesn't mean you actually have to give everybody the details. It doesn't mean you have to carry everything through immediately. But so people have an idea of what your direction of travel is.
And I do think as well, the media need to grow up a bit because, do you know what? If Kemi Badenoch came and laid out some policies now, she might say, well, the thing is, I might, in the circumstances change those policies. And the media gets obsessed with U-turn.
Yeah.
Guess what? It's okay to be reactive. It's okay to say, I thought this 4 years ago, but I've changed my mind now. That should also be permissible.
Well, it should, and you should be able to have the courage to do that and say, well, actually, I've now looked at the details and the landscape has changed and this is what we're going to do now. I would have much more respect for somebody to say, it wasn't the greatest idea, I'm going to change it. I think that level of honesty is what most people would appreciate.
What people want. Right, we're going to take a short break now. Thank you to Anne for giving us a call there. If you want to be like Anne and you want to join the conversation, you can actually register your interest now. You don't have to phone at the exact moment we're going to take calls. No. I've got a team of skillful, technically minded individuals who are sitting in front of various screens and buttons and monitors and faders. And if you call this number, 03444 99 1000, they will answer. And they will just sense check you, make sure you're not too weird. And if you're not, then when the time is right, they will give you a call back to connect and talk to Claire and I here in the studio. You can use that number as well to send me a WhatsApp message or leave me a voice note on WhatsApp. 87222 is the number for text message. Put the word talk before your text. That way, it pings the masts on top of Talk Towers. We're on X at talkTV. Let me know your thoughts on anything we're talking about today. It's Christmas Eve. Come on, cheer us up a bit. What are you doing while you're listening? You're wrapping, you're boiling up your bones for your gravy. I was doing that this morning. I had to actually double back on myself when I was going to the tube because I thought I'd left my bones boiling on the hob. What are you driving somewhere? How's the traffic looking out there? Let us know. We're interested in knowing. Right, going to take a short break now. Back after this.
On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hello there. I just want to rattle through some of your messages before we move on to the next segment, because I think it's Christmas and let's just get through them. I want to hear from you today. I want a lot of interaction. Sean says, how did you hurt your finger, Alex? Happy birthday for Thursday and Merry Christmas. I got it caught on my banister post. I was running up the stairs like, you know, Usain Bolt or Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. His serious arms. And I was like pelting up the stairs and somehow my little finger was in my banister post while the rest of my body was following the momentum of my feet. But Claire, during the advert break, taped it up for me. Look at that. Brilliant. A job well done, because you know all about these things, don't you?
Very few talents that I have.
Yeah, but I think it's an important talent. So it's not very dramatic, though. I've been asking for some sort of bandage or something so I get the sympathy vote this Christmas.
We can do that, so you can go home and,
I want it to look sort of, really
properly damaged.
Serious, indeed. Someone's also said, George Soros and Bill Gates give loads of cash. To whom? That's not political donations, though, is it? That is largely to NGOs. But to be fair, they seem to have a huge impact on policy and the way the country is run. And And, I like this one. It makes it worse. It's like the blimmin' post office again. Makes it worse that when they leave you the little ticket to collect your parcels, the local offices for collecting is only open for about 2 hours a day. They don't provide collection lockers like someone like Amazon. That is so true. It is true. You're like, I'm not at home when you've delivered, and then I'm also at work when I've got to now go and pick it up. Yeah. How am I supposed to get this thing? You're holding it hostage.
You have to take all your ID with you as well, so you can't just sort of run in, you can park the car and run in.
Yeah,
you've got to take all your wallet and
if
whatever
you've ordered like
ID.
some nice coffee or something off Amazon, you just say, forget it, keep it. Too much hassle at this point. That's what I was like with this finger. I was like, I'm not going to A&E on Christmas Eve. I'd rather have a life of claw.
Exactly.
Let's speak to John Rentoul now, Chief Political Commentator for The Independent. Hello, John. How are you doing?
Good morning, Alex.
Good morning.
Happy Christmas Eve.
Happy Christmas Eve to you. You all ready for a big day?
Absolutely, yes. The duck is ready to go.
Ooh, Doug, look at you. That's very middle class, John. That's I think you're becoming right wing in your old age. You're going to have a bird within a bird within a bird next year at this rate.
It's a free range duck.
Well, how lovely.
That's what I'm having.
Ooh, nice. Can I come over?
Anytime.
Oh, there you go. He thinks I'm joking. You might have to cut the meat for me, though, because I've done something to my hand. Feed me.
That's your little finger, Alex.
Yeah, but, it's going to make holding cutlery difficult. The fork hands compromised.
You hold your cutlery with your little finger. You're doing something... You're not middle class.
I know I'm not, John. I could have told you that ages ago. I eat with my hands like this normally, straight out to the fridge. Especially over Christmas. Right, let's talk politics. First of all, let's talk about the Reform membership story, where they quite cleverly put this thing out that they think they're going to overtake the Conservatives in a month. I think it's already having the desired effect. What does this mean politically, though? I mean, when you look at party membership numbers, it's not massive, is it? When you get, it's just over 100,000, 136,000 or something like that, compared to the olden days when everyone seems to be members of political parties. Even if the membership overtakes the Conservatives, it doesn't necessarily mean, well, that's it. The next general election, it's in the bag.
Oh, there you go, Alex, talking your party down. Honestly.
I don't have a party. I'm a broadcaster. Dear Ofcom.
No, okay, right. But no, I think it would spook the Tories if they got overtaken in the membership stakes. I mean, you're right. The number of members is not necessarily that important. Labour had 500,000 members, and they were all Jeremy Corbyn fans, and that didn't do the party.
They were all Jeremy Corbyn. Like, this was the sort of greatest con of the century. The man sat there one night just, typing out membership applications.
But it will. No, but it'll worry the Tories. I mean, the Tories would be a lot more worried if Reform were doing better in, say, council by-elections. I mean, I was looking at the council by-elections yesterday. That's how I like to spend my holiday time. But the Tories have been doing quite well in council by-elections. They've been winning a lot of seats off Labour. Reform have done okay. I mean, they maybe gained about 6, I think, since the election. But until they actually start winning those kind of votes, and the local elections next year will be a big test. Right. I think they've got a long way to go before they can think seriously about replacing the Tories as the opposition.
You have delightfully teed up the next topic I wanted to ask you about, which was, I am not a big fan of some of the things I've heard coming out of Labour Party quarters of late. One being that,
You've never been a fan of Labour.
Sometimes I'd quite like those respect order things. I think they're quite a good idea. I like the idea of preventative care as a focus in the NHS. They don't do all bad.
Okay,
I'm
good.
scraping the barrel, but
fair and balanced, very good.
Fair and balanced, that's me, as always. But in terms of 3 things that I don't like is the idea that they're going to change the franchise. I mean, the Labour Party have said this for a long time. We know, by and large, it's because they think it benefits them in terms of giving the vote to younger people. I'm not a fan of the suggestion that, maybe those local elections won't go ahead. I'm not a fan of all of a sudden, we're going to have to look at where parties get their money from. As somebody who's worked in various elections around the world, it kind of is the sort of dodgy practice that you get coming out of less than democratic developing world nations. donations. And I just don't like it. I think it smells funny. I think they should be held to account for this. I think more journalists should be saying, you're running scared. I want to know your take on that.
So, sorry, what you're in favour of?
No, I don't like
parties being funded by foreign donations.
Well, no, if Elon Musk wanted to donate to Reform via a UK business, this happens. I remember Barry Gardner was in receipt of a fair amount of money from someone in China. If it comes from a UK registered company, it would currently be lawful. But right.
I mean,
so is this not tinkering? I don't things not messing about with the system because it is essentially trying to quash the opposition.
No, it's not. No, it's trying to adhere to the spirit of the original legislation, which was to stop foreign donations to British political parties. I mean, Elon Musk is a United States citizen, so I'm very much against him using his money, even if it's through some kind of side route, to try and influence British politics. I think that's outrageous. And I think any attempt to modify that legislation to tighten it up would be a good thing. But I completely agree with you about votes at 16.
Right, I don't...
There you are,
yeah.
fair and balanced.
They're fair and balanced. That's what we like. Now, let's talk as well about the figures out yesterday, the sort of 0.0% growth. I think that's what was to be expected. What is alarming me, however, John, I want to get your ideas on what you think is going to happen in the new year, is this seems to me to be the outcome of the doom-mongering ahead of the budget. This doesn't necessarily reflect the impacts of the budget. I think we're going to be going in the other direction. I think we're going to be in reverse in 2025.
What, we're going to be in recession?
Yeah.
Well, I hope not. But I mean, I don't think. I mean, yes, Labour rather overdid the doom and gloom and the talking the country down and saying how terrible everything was, which did rather dampen business confidence. Although I think there's the budget measures themselves actually had the real effect. But although we haven't seen that in the growth figures yet, so you may be right in thinking that the growth is going to be difficult next year. But all of this is in the context of Labour's appalling inheritance from the Conservatives. I mean, the Conservatives left the public finances in a terrible state, and whoever was going to be in government now would be taking difficult measures, and people would be complaining that it was suppressing growth. I'm afraid that is just how it's going to be until people get their bearings and the economy gets back on track.
John Rentoul, thank you ever so much. Fair and balanced. Have a very Merry Christmas, and I'm really looking forward to sharing some duck with you tomorrow. Right, we're going to take a short break now, but when we come back, we're going to be talking about Christmas Eve travel, because it is Christmas Eve today, and some of you might be travelling. It's really that simple. See you after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. Are you where you're supposed to be this Christmas? Or are you yet to be where you hope to be this Christmas? If you are in the latter category, then you might want to have the advice of Lisa Francesca Nand, who is a travel journalist, and she joins us now. Lisa, great to have you on the programme. For those people who are planning to go somewhere today in readiness for the big day, or perhaps actually they're going to go somewhere after today. A lot of people set off to see family members on Boxing Day, in that weird period when you don't know what day of the week it is before New Year. What is it looking like out there?
Well, not too bad at the moment, actually. You know, we had these major problems on the weekend on Sunday. At Heathrow, they had about 100 flights cancelled. And obviously, lots of people, millions of people are moving around at this time of year. This is going to be the busiest day on the roads, but the weather was an additional problem, and that seems to have brightened up. So things are actually looking okay. But the RAC have said that there will be 29.3 million journeys over Christmas, which is quite a lot. And the majority of those car journeys are going to happen today, with the busiest time of day has already started at 10 a.m. and is finishing around 4 or 5. So it is going to be busy, depending on how far you are going. I think if you're going in the car, you are going to be caught up in a queue at some point. But at least the weather's looking that little bit better now, so we don't have those additional issues.
That I found out the other day, because at one point I was sort of deciding what I was going to do over Christmas, because I'm sort of was torn between being with my other half and his family or my own family in Gloucester. And so I thought, well, I'll just wait and see. But it turns out, even if I wanted to go all the way back to Gloucester, I probably couldn't, because Paddington Station is just gone. It's not operating, it seems to me. A lot of trains aren't running really over Christmas, are they? Is that normal?
Yeah, it is normal, and it's a shame, really. I mean, the train operators say it's a non-busy, well, not as busy as the commuting times of year, because, of course, people are at home. But, of course, there are many people who do want to travel by train. Paddington's closed. Liverpool Street in London is closed. Crewe, Cambridge, there's a lot of closures around the country for engineering works. And, of course, train bosses will argue that it's got to be done at some time of year. But it is an absolute shame, because, you know, we are, you know, supposedly trying to get people out of their cars and be slightly more eco-friendly. And, you know, at this time of year, it's a perfect opportunity to do that. But that's what the train bosses say, that actually this is a quieter time of year and it's got to be done at some point. And it will mean that the trains are running better, supposedly, after the engineering works are done. But yeah, it is a little bit frustrating. You know, it's the train travel in this country is difficult and expensive, you know, I think at the best of times. But yeah, so be it. There are still a lot of closures over Christmas.
Now, much like Sir Keir Starmer, I am jetting off for a little holiday in the new year just to recharge my batteries. Hopefully we're not going to the same place. I'll be disturbed if I see him on the beach, but there you go. It could happen. With all the flight cancellations from Heathrow, is that going to cause backlogs? Are there going to be issues at airports going forward into the new year? Any industrial action planned? Do we know if there's going to be any sort of egregious weather conditions? Or at the moment, does it look like things are going to be just about okay? Fingers crossed.
What is it about politicians on the beach that you don't want to come across them, do you? You just really
don't. It's just, I mean, that is not what you need when you have your pina colada.
Might have been David Cameron that was on the beach with, like, his school shoes on. You know, it just wasn't a good look.
He used to go to Ibiza and take a personal photographer with him, didn't he, Claire? He used to have a personal photographer. He took photos of him at Ibiza, and you're like, stop being weird.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird all around. So I'm hoping I'm not going to bump into any of them, actually, on the beach. I'm jetting off as well on Boxing Day. So actually, funnily enough, we don't have strikes at this time of year. This is apparently the first Christmas since COVID, so 2019, that we haven't had COVID restrictions on flights or strikes. There might be some after the Christmas period. That's debatable at the moment, whether they will still be ongoing. But at the moment, it's looking very clear. And there are 4 million people. You're not the only person thinking, I'm going to jet off and take this time of year, you know, with the extended holiday and everything, take advantage of that and jet off to either sunnier climes, where a lot of people are going, you know, the usual, I'm going down to Malaga, but a lot of people are going to Spain and also the Canary Islands to try and get some sunshine. And also a lot of people are also taking advantage of of the holidays and going skiing as well. So at the moment, it's looking quite good. The delays and cancellations on the weekend, on Sunday in particular, from Heathrow seem to have cleared up now, but it will be busy. You know, I suggest going early and enjoying the experience as much as possible. I'll be flying on my own with my kids. It'll be quite hard work. Have some lunch and, you know, make it all part of the fun, shall we say.
Yeah, this is why they put Wetherspoons in airports. It's for our sanity. Lisa, thank you ever so much. Lisa Francesca Nans there. I'm off to Lanzarote. I cannot wait. Nice. I love Lands. I'm a regular in the old Rotty, and just going with my other half, going to do a bit of hiking. We tend to sort of go middle island and sort of, you know, in the volcanoes. But that doesn't stop me going down to the front for a few all-you-can-eat buffets and some pina coladas, that's for sure. The true spirit of holiday. Let's go through some of your messages now before we take a break. Kaz in Bedford says, "You're so right about Kemi Badenoch. She says she's taking time to assess what went wrong at the last election, but the lesson the Tories seem incapable of learning is that they have factions in their party that will never align. Jenrick had more conviction, but also referred to maintaining their broad church. Big mistake. Woke people have contaminated the Tory party and they're no longer Tories, hence the emergence of reform." I think, well, that's true. Again, I went to this dinner last night. There was a former Conservative MP who lost his seat, and he was talking about just this, the fact that the Conservatives for a long time have been two parties rolled into one. Yeah. And it's interesting because you were saying earlier about having to appeal to a lot more people to get above your the ceiling of your base. And so a political party, to win an election by and large, has to build a cohort of voters. They have to sort of get people who might vote this way and people who vote this way to both vote in the same direction. That's very difficult to do when you're a strong-tasting meat.
It certainly is, but if you remember back to Tony Blair and the landslide of 97, there were an awful lot of people that voted because of him, because he made the Labour Party seem more relevant, and these are former Conservative voters, especially women, who were looking at it going, well, actually, you're giving us an idea of how it can be better, and you've come up with a bit of a plan, and we like the cut of your jib, I think was the general message. Whether they stayed voting Labour after that election remains to be seen. I think a lot of it settled down, and yes, they did win those 3 elections in a row, but I think the vote share along those former Conservative voters had gone down again. So it's interesting. I think it's a lot to do with the individual at the helm as well, whether you agree with all of their policies or not. If you believe in them, that's what's going to bring people back.
Yeah, I think the big issue is going to be immigration. And this is the thing. When it comes to immigration, I think if you asked anybody, love him or loathe him, who's most likely to do something about it, they would all say Nigel Farage, because he's been banging on about it for years. Well, it really is a focal issue, not just in the UK, but across the West now. George says, "Good morning, Alex, and a Merry Christmas to all at Talk," from George in Blackpool, with reference to Reform UK's membership gallop. "I wonder if they have not already surpassed the Conservative numbers, considering that a lot of Conservatives may not renew their memberships when they lapse because they are now Reform Party members." Just a thought. Well, that is interesting. A lot of people could have signed up to one while still having their details on a different database. And you'd imagine a lot of the uptick in membership could well be coming from former Conservatives. So well identified there, George. Good morning, Alex. Happy Christmas. And to you. Delivery drivers, I like this one. Delivery drivers are in sync with my toilet habits more than my emails are in sync with my cloud. I now pretend to go to the toilet to outsmart the delivery drivers to get my parcels quicker. It's Andy in Bridgend.
I mean, there's a lot of thought been put into that plan, isn't there?
I used to do this watching the Formula One, because I love Formula One, but it is a sport where you sit there and nothing happens. And you're like, oh, come on.
The minute you move.
And I'm like, going to go make a cup of tea. And the minute you go to the kitchen, you hear, running back into the sitting room. So with Formula One as well, when I want a bit of action, I think I'm going to make something happen on track. I'm going to go put the kettle on.
Get up off the sofa.
I'm going to try and see if I can sort of, I don't know, transmit a signal to someone to crash. And this is a lovely messages. Merry Christmas, Alex, to all the presenters and behind the scenes at Talk Radio. Thanks for a great service and telling us the truth. Best wishes for 2025. Thank you very much for your kind messages. If you want to keep them coming in, WhatsApp is 03444991000. We are on text as well, 87222. You have to put the word talk before your message. You can also register your interest to speak to us on the blower in the next hour. 03444991000 is the number for that as well. We're on X at talkTV. Everything is standard network rate, so it doesn't cost any more than phoning your nan. And you haven't done that for a while, have you? So perhaps a bit later in the day, you might want to pick up the phone and see if she wants to come over for some turkey tomorrow. Don't go anywhere. I'm back after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. The things that we do during advert breaks. Claire's got a brilliant photo of my producer Alicia finishing the work of wrapping up my claw after David Bull took one look at my weird crippled finger and said, yeah, that's broken, love, you need to stop that up. And then I had Vanessa, who's a makeup lady, putting lipstick on and brushing my hair, hand up like this, being sort of wrapped up, offers of biscuits. It's all been going on in the break. If only there's like a little red button where you could watch some of the mad things that happen when we're actually off air.
Yeah. All bad. I don't think you need to suggest that to anybody.
We'd be taken off, wouldn't we? Be gone.
We would. Yeah, I can't see that.
Oh, well. Anyway, let's talk about the economy now, because that's going to be really good news, isn't it, in 2025? Can't wait. Here to deliver the doom and gloom with joy and aplomb and grace is Justin Urquhart Stewart. And hopefully, fingers crossed, if I've got my Christmas wish, there will be a cat. Hi, Justin.
No cat.
Justin, that's always on my rider. Whenever I have you on, I'm always like, bring a cat.
Normally she'll be round here like a shot, but no sign of her at the moment.
Oh, that's always the way, isn't it? When you want them, when you want them is when you can't find them. Every time.
And then she actually will then put her nails into my shirt and then probably destroy that one. So I'll be in some pain a little later, no doubt.
The cats are very good about doing what I like to think of as the subtle claw, unlike my not-so-subtle claw, where they sort of come, but when they want something, and you're sitting watching TV on the sofa, and a paw reaches out on your, onto your jeans, and one claw hooks through enough to just hurt you. It's not like a violent act, it's just a little... give me the biscuits. And you're like, all right, okay. And we appease them, don't we?
You get your PC there, and then you've got the cat in front of you who probably then sits on the keyboard, thus wiping what you've just written. Yeah. Some fantastic tome is there, has now completely vanished, and the cat now stares at you and says, so what are you going to do about it, mate?
If I'm not giving my cat biscuits because, I don't know, I'm doing something important on my phone, she'll come and she puts her paw on top and pulls it away from me like this. And I'm like, would you honestly. Right, let's talk about the economy. I mean, as much as I'd like to talk about cats for 15 minutes, it'd be a better and more joyful subject, because it's not looking good, is it, Justin?
I'm afraid it's not looking good. Mind you, we're going out of our way at the moment, courtesy of the government, to ensure that we all feel thoroughly depressed. Not only do we obviously have a budget which was taking money out of the economy and increasing taxation and increasing tax on areas which didn't seem to be in the original mandate, but leave that to one side, at a time when the economy was already low and slow, not just domestically, but internationally as well. And to be able to sit there and say, and we'll get it going and growing in the future, well, we haven't seen any idea of how that's going to be done. What you need to be able to do with an economy is put back confidence. Not to say it's fine and dandy, no, but not to sit there and say, you've got sparkly things in your eyes, it's all going to be great. But there are things in this country we're really rather good at and we're doing really quite well at. But the government doesn't seem to take notice of these things. So, for example, you go around the high-tech spots of this country and you take, for example, all those nicknames. You have Silicon Roundabout, Silicon Gorge, Silicon Fen, Silicon Beach. That's Brighton, apparently. And basically what they show is hotspots of small IT businesses, and they breed. And what you'll find is you'll have these little hot clusters coming up with good ideas, small business ideas, and you try to go to the next stage. But this is where we're bad at it. We then don't have the finance for the next stage. We have private equity and things like that, but that's too short-term and high-risk stuff. We want longer-term, much more patient investment structure. Now, we've got no shortage of investment money in this country. There's lots of pension money sitting there waiting to be invested, which unfortunately gets sent to London, to city gets in red braces, who give you a nice breadth of investments around the world, but not necessarily in Britain. So we can actually make sure regionally, actually more investment is actually going into those regions, into these tech businesses, and not because it's the right thing to do because you're trying to be nice to areas which need it, but actually because these are perfectly good businesses. The government does not need to spend any money at all on this, because we all know government's absolutely useless in investing anything. What they can do is give you the tax breaks to encourage you to go and do so, whether it's you as an investor through things like ISAs and things like that, or whether it's companies having enterprise investment schemes, and then also you can have regional enterprise investment schemes. The government doesn't have to pay anything to that unless they go wrong, in which case then they'll have to pay for some of the support money. But some will work, and when they work, they'll be paying more tax. The government gets more income. We're very good at setting up businesses. We generally set up more businesses than France and Germany put together, so we're entrepreneurial. We've got good tech all around the country, not just in London. And instead we'd be wasting our money on things like HS2, which was actually going to connect more businesses, in theory, to London or Wormwood Scrubs, and not actually then really making full use of those northern hubs, where if you link those together, you're going to get much more bang for your bucks there. So there's very little logic to any of this. And you actually try and find out why, and the why really is none of them actually run a business before. Never really understood.
Oh, no. Rachel Reeves was an economist at a top bank. She's a genius.
Oh, this is marvellous. I mean, it's very good working on the till like that. But it's what you need to do. Mind you, I had to do that once as well. But I didn't have to tell anybody else that no, it wasn't true. But the whole point is that we've actually got some really good things to do. And now is the time for the government to sit there and say, you're quite right, we've got a mess, we've got to sort it out. But focus also on those positive areas. Why? Because that confidence comes back. And this is particularly important this year, because remember, we've got interest rates which are still at a level far higher than they were 4 or 5 years ago. And you're going to probably about three-quarters to 1 million people who are going to have to remortgage this year. They were at 1-2%. Now they're going at 4-5%. Doesn't sound much. It's 100% increase. That's really painful for people. And we've got a Bank of England, which frankly is paying attention, because we've got the system whereby apparently to control inflation, you just use interest rates. But it's a bit like a man who's got a hammer. Everything looks like a nail. So they sit there and say, oh, well, inflation, we'll put up interest rates. But actually what you need to be able to do is have a much broader scale and say, actually, a lot of inflation was down to actually supply chain issues elsewhere around the world, nothing to do with domestic inflation. There is now some of that creeping in as well, but they were using the wrong tool to try and address this issue. So there are lots of things they can be doing right now to actually get more money coming in for next year and have that word confidence again to make sure that we actually have a decent Christmas and New Year, not on the basis that we need the alcohol to make ourselves completely sozzled or we forget about it all, but actually sit there and say, actually next year could be a good year. But if they carry on like this, I will revert to the alcohol.
Well, yeah, you and me both, I can assure you of that. But if we do end up, because we were saying in the first bit of the programme that it seems to me that this is a reaction to the doom-mongering ahead of the budget, not yet the figures connected to the consequences of the budget, particularly what might happen in regards to employment and employers' national insurance, and whether or not that could potentially tilt the country into recession. If it does, I mean, first of all, let me know if you think it will. If it does, what does that mean at large? You know, is it one of those things that economists use just to measure the health of an economy? And when an economy does start shrinking or going backwards, does that have a knock-on effect wider and societally?
Well, you're quite right. We're actually questioning the fact that we use these numbers because they're not very precise. And to say that the economy grew by 0.1% or naught every quarter, and as we saw yesterday, they had to revise last year's figures. They always have to do that. And it went from 0.1 up down to naught. These are, frankly, irrelevant. The economy is flatlining. What you need to be able to do is actually start going to those areas, as I said before, where the growth is going to be and encourage that sort of growth coming in. But what you'll do is, if you have more people in a position where they think it's not going anywhere, they will then put off expenditure. So whether it's an individual saying, I'm not going to move house, then they'll delay that. But of course, if you move house, what happens? The kitchen goes, bathroom goes, everything else has to change. It has a knock-on effect. The Americans are very good at this. After the last banking crisis, they identified where the key issue was. Get the banking system working properly so there's more money going into the system. And therefore, what you ended up with was the housing market starting to change. And I don't mean the old banking system where you were dealing with, well, the one like the ones that we had in Royal Bank of Scotland, who were just sort of, frankly, faking it in an extremely dangerous manner. But you need more money going into the system, not from the government, but have that money flowing through the system, almost changing some of the financial plumbing, as it were. Back in 1945, which I'm pleased to say I don't remember, there were actually 45 stock exchanges in this country, which you didn't need. You don't need red gits in red bracelets telling you this. But there were 7 regional exchanges. And the whole point of those was to actually make sure that local investors could invest in local businesses. Oh, I know George and Mary down the road, they're setting up that business. I will actually invest some money into that, not because they're friends of mine, because I think it's actually quite a good idea, a good business. They don't have to go to London. They don't have to go through the expensive charges of investment managers and some of the investment banks and things like that. We devised a system which is great for international corporations who are willing to pay the charges, not for growing businesses. And that's what we've always been good at in the past. And this is what, unfortunately, this government, and I have to say the last one as well, failed to really understand. And even some of the businesses they were involved in, look at some of the ministers, not exactly the ones you'd say that's the future of our economy, running phone-in lines and some of the other ones you saw where people were actually just doing rather strange delivery systems, things like, no, I'm talking about real businesses where we've actually got a proper future in.
I mean, it's often suggested it's a very left-wing thing to grow the state and not really grow the economy. If Sir Keir Starmer doesn't change track on this, because he has sort of suggested, well, I might need to put taxes up again to afford all the things. I think they sort of came out of the boxes really quickly with a scattergun of left-wingery, and now they're going, oh, I'm going to have to pick up the tab for that now. If he doesn't change course, what's going to happen to us in the long run, Justin?
It's very simple. You run out of money, you run out of confidence with this. They put a tax on jobs. Oh, but it's national insurance on employers. They have to pay. That's called a tax on jobs, because the employers are not going to be able to sit there and say, I can't afford more to employ somebody else because I've got to pay more tax on it. And this is sheer logic. We're not dealing with people here who are evil capitalists trying to screw people down to the floor. People are just trying to run all ordinary businesses. You're putting those extra costs up. That doesn't help. No, what they need to do is actually go back and say, right, where do we deploy the limited amount of funds that we've got? And the answer is, well, the current structure you've got isn't very efficient. What you can do, though, is release where those monies already are to be able to make sure that goes into the community. So, for example, you actually have regional pension funds in the north, particularly somewhere like Newcastle. Instead of waiting for the government to actually sit there and say, we'll approve, say, dual carriageway for the A1 eventually going to Scotland because there's no motorway connecting that side of it, they'd be waiting for that for donkey's years. The Treasury's never going to approve of that. You can actually have that raise funds locally for it. You raise funds locally, local people can invest in it, they'll get a return on it. And so, therefore, you're finding alternative ways. You're not going back to quantitative easing and printing money. What you are doing, though, is tapping other areas of perfectly valid investment money for valid causes, not for goodwill causes. There is another issue. Of all the quantitative easing debt there, and you look at our debt is eye-watering. What's our interest payment this year? About 116 billion. What? Where 4 years ago, that was about 50 billion, same as the defence budget. It's huge. Now, remember, who owns this debt? Well, overseas company owns our debt, and also, obviously, individual pension funds own our debt, but also about a third of it is owned by the government. So the government actually, actually owns the debt. Twice a year, someone in the Treasury actually has to write, well, actually in the Bank of England, has to write out a coupon or a dividend to the government, so to the Bank of England, effectively saying, here is half a year's worth of £30 billion of coupon money which we're paying to you. So hang on, we've got this debt which we're now paying interest to ourselves on. This is illogical. So actually what you need to look at here is that a lot of this debt isn't really debt. You can actually cancel this off. Now, realistically, you wouldn't do that internationally. It wouldn't look terribly clever. But you can wash that through over time and actually realise that the debt figure can come down because we own a large proportion of that debt already. So you've got assets and liabilities, and you're on both sides of it. You can start neutralising two of them. So, again, a bit more imagination there, and the cost of that comes down, releasing the government, if it wishes to be able to actually spend more money. Frankly, I don't want to spend any more money at all, except possibly on the defence budget, please, before the Russians move in.
It's fascinating stuff. I wish I understood the economy better, but when you hear it like that, how convoluted the system is, left hand owing the right hand, surely you can just go, well, let's stop that arrangement. I often wonder, you look, everyone's sort of fascinated when the righties, let's say, are fascinated by what Milei is doing in Argentina, because he's done a radical overhaul of the Argentinian economy. I don't know how well it's going. People get excited about it, but perhaps it's not as good as it seems. But we seem to have a problem in the United Kingdom and much of the West, really, with doing anything radical. I don't know whether that's because we've boxed ourselves in with so many quangos, from the OBR to this to that. The markets will say this, the Bank of England will do that. I wonder if anybody can get into power and really steer the economy around.
It takes time. But there are three numbers worth remembering here. One number, but the first number to remember is 6. Remember, we are still the world's 6th largest economy. We've been overtaken by India. It's hardly surprising. Then also look at number 9. Number 9, why? Because actually we don't make anything anymore. We're not a manufacturer. Okay, we're the world's largest, 9th largest manufacturer. But we don't export anything anymore. Well, we're the world's 15th largest manufacturer. Actually, we are still really rather important in these things, and we do extremely good at running ourselves down and being able to show the things that are wrong. There are an awful lot of things actually we're doing really quite right. Now, these are not so tinted glasses to say it's fine and dandy. But if we actually persuade ourselves that actually it's going to be a bad year and all the figures are just going pointing in one direction, then you will end up with a recession. There is no automatic way you can actually have a growth. There's no magic formula for growth except giving people confidence to be able to go out and spend and or invest. Get that right, and that's when you'll start seeing a change. And that's where the Chancellor, with the budget, really messed up. It's all very well saying we're getting the bad news out of the way now, but then far as you're concerned, you keep on having more bad news. Where's the good news? Show me the future.
I know, well, that's sort of boosterism, as Boris Johnson would have called it, for all of his ills. Justin, it's always wonderful catching up with you. Justin should just run the Treasury, shouldn't he? Life would be better if he did that. Yeah. But this is the thing, there is something about the Labour Party that has been totally doom and gloom. I thought it was madness ahead of that budget, where they kept saying difficult decisions are going to have to be taken. We've inherited a mess, 22 billion black hole. That's a bit like saying, hi world, don't come here, don't do business here, we're miserable, it's too expensive, we're on our knees, we're rubbish, it's not going to get any better. I mean, anyone who might have been thinking, oh, I want to sort of create a new car plant, or, you know, Elon Musk coming over, I might put a Twitter office in. No, go away, you're not welcome.
Yeah, we're really bad, aren't we? And we do talk ourselves down as a country, and we shouldn't do that. You're never going to get investment. But Keir Starmer can't do jolly, can he? He can't do positive.
I don't know. Have you seen his Christmas message? I think it's a delight. Do we have the Christmas message in the bank there, Tech Op? Oh, Tech Up doesn't know. Tech Up's finding out for me. Oh, we do. It's in the bank. Well, do you know what? Let's take a little advert break and treat ourselves to that when we come back, fingers crossed. Don't go anywhere. Back after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is...
Hello. Now, before we proceed with our next interviewee, I just want to read out a message from Dave in Bristol. It says, I don't know whether you've talked about Starmer's Christmas message, but listening to that hypocrite's speech would be like receiving a Christmas card from someone who wishes me harm or left by a burglar robbing my home. So I won't do it. Well, you better turn off then, Dave, because here it is.
This Christmas, people will be travelling up and down the country, heading home, visiting relatives and loved ones, to celebrate together the hope and joy of this special season. It's a time to remind ourselves what's really important: family, friendship, and fellowship between all people. Being there for one another in these celebrations, as well as the more difficult times. I'd like especially to thank those who will spend their Christmas serving others this year in our NHS and emergency services, our armed forces, and the churches and charities that will welcome every person this Christmas. Because I know this is not an easy time for everyone. And my thoughts are with all those who are lonely this Christmas, having a tough time, missing a loved one. You are not alone. Because as Christians celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, the Christmas story reminds all of us to reach out to one another, to care for one another, and to look after those around us. This Christmas, I will be hoping for peace, particularly in the Middle East, as the birthplace of the Christmas story. I'll be looking towards a better, brighter future for every person, and celebrating the joy and wonder that Christmas brings. So, from my family to yours, I hope you have a very Merry Christmas.
Wow, do you think if you lifted him up and looked on the bottom of his foot, it says made in Sichuan or something, and batteries not included?
Yeah, and whose house do we think he was borrowing?
Is that Lord
for
Ali's
that?
house?
Whose tree in the background?
I mean, I think if Sir Keir Starmer's got any wish from Santa this Christmas, it should be for a bagload of charisma. Anyway, hope you liked that, Dave in Bristol. Yeah. Right, now let's talk. Sticking with the theme of broadcasting, if you will. Let's talk to Arkil Ahmed, former BBC executive. First of all, let's talk about the licence fee story, first of all. Because apparently the BBC sent out an ominous letter to UK households threatening to send TV licence enforcement officers to people's homes on Christmas Day for not paying the annual fee. That's a bit mad, isn't it, Arkil? I mean, if you're going to sort of, say we're going to send enforcement officers, you wouldn't say, we're going to do it on Christmas Day. But it may be on the 25th of December or another day. You could be prosecuted if you're caught watching, recorded or downloading TV programmes illegally on live TV or BBC iPlayer. I mean, that is the definition of Scrooge.
Yeah, funny thing is, my son got that letter actually because he's at university. Yeah, and I said to him, I said, don't worry about it. But actually, that's the irony of all it. You've got, look, the licence fee collecting people, they've got to send out a letter, but that was a massive mistake. I think they've already apologised, haven't they? I mean, you're right. I mean, whatever spin you want to put on this, it's not positive. It's a nightmare, isn't it? The fact of the matter is, you've got to send out letters about people if they've not got a licence fee, and there was a licence fee previously at that address. But you don't say, are you going to be in on Christmas Day? And we may come round. And I think, you know what? I don't know what, in these situations where we always used to joke about it and say deputy heads will roll. I'm not saying that somebody's going to lose their job over it. I'm not going to say that at all, but I think someone's going to be in a very, very on the naughty step for quite some time.
That was a
I've been okayed that letter to go out. Yeah,
ridiculous, isn't it?
It's ridiculous.
I bet
you can't defend it in any shape or form, can you? Really?
Enforcement officers probably don't even work on Christmas Day, so it's live.
No, they don't.
Well.
They don't.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, they're not drawing. I mean, I've actually been out licensed when I was an executive. I actually went out licence fee collecting a few times. Yeah. I found myself sat next to the head of licence fee collecting at some meeting, and I ended up just saying, I'd like to go out. And the next thing, I went out 2 or 3 times. And it is interesting, fascinating when you talk to people from different... So I went across different socio-economic groups and talked to them. And it is really interesting who pays and who doesn't pay and why they pay and why they don't pay. And it's a vast variety of different reasons. But it's important. I always felt it was important to go out there to understand this is where the money that you get how you should spend it wisely.
So it's a bit like that programme, sort of Secret Boss or Undercover Boss, whatever it's called. It's an undercover BBC exec masking himself.
No. We were always introduced. They always say, "Oh, by the way," and then yeah, people would then give you one hell of a rant. And I remember I went out once in the middle of that whole kind of Jonathan Ross kind of fiasco with, and it was terrible. People would just, and I said I can't justify it because I agree with you. It was a horrible thing that happened. But the fact is, license fee collecting is not something that people, it's not as scary as it sounds. And most of the times that I went out, the people were actually working with people to say to them, to help them to actually pay rather than to criminalise them.
Let's talk now about the fact that Patricia Hidalgo, I don't know how one pronounces her name, but we'll go for Hidalgo, Director of Children's and Education at the BBC, has raised concerns about decline in programming for young people on commercial channels and streaming services. She says, despite our continued efforts, the broader children's media landscape is in decline. Without wider intervention, we risk losing a generation's connection to British culture and storytelling. This might seem like a small thing, but when people think about their upbringing, the first thing you think about is the programmes you watched on telly, and they do have a massive impact. They really do shape, I think, your development, shape sort of your attitudes towards the world. They're necessarily educational. I think, especially when more and more parents go out to work or might be busy, they work longer hours, they come home, they're cooking dinner. A lot of parents will, sit a kid in front of a TV. I mean, the Americans were up in arms at one point because all their kids started developing British accents from watching Peppa Pig. But, it is something that is largely overlooked. What's your view on all of this? Should when it comes to the licence fee and the things it be affording, more be directed into, say, children's programming as part of a public service?
Well, I think it's less about the licence fee. That's the argument, because actually you're right. You could argue more money should be spent. No, the bigger question is this, that ITV, Channel 5, etc., they do less children's programming now because there's no return in it for them commercially, because you can't advertise certain particular products during children's programming, with it high fat, sugar, salt, etc., whatever, all of these kind of things. So the fact of the matter is there's less programming being made. And what they're saying is that you've got CBBC doing what it does, CBBC. So there is money being spent, but the fact of the matter is you can't compete with the American programming that we're seeing on Netflix and all the other kind of streamers. Mm-hmm. And so this is actually quite a nuanced conversation. What she's saying is, this isn't just the BBC. Everybody needs to be doing children's programming, and we need to change the system to enable that to happen. Now, I agree with you. There could be an argument that says, well, what's the licence fee for? If it's for public service broadcasting, this is an important thing, actually getting a generation of children to engage with public service broadcasting and British values from these programmes. So should some of the licence fee be contestable for other broadcasters to be able to say, we will spend it in this area? Now, they've tried that with children's in the past. And not to say that they shouldn't try it again, and I think they should do, because I think it's essential. We've all, if you're a parent, we've all lived through it. And I remember lecturing my kids at times saying, hey, this isn't Disney Channel, you can't talk to your parents like that. Because some of the kind of like the funny asides that they would make and say, hey. And I used to use the Disney Channel because it was 10, 15 years ago when I was talking to my kids at that age. But it's I actually think it's a very brave statement that's been made.
Well, I think a lot of people, I can hear them screaming right now at their radios or screens saying, we don't trust the BBC to be the guardians, the custodians of British culture.
I think that's what she's saying, though, that we shouldn't just be the custodians.
Right,
everybody else should be doing it as well.
In fact, I don't trust most people in media to be the custodians of British culture. Sell it up the river. Before I let you go, Arkil, what did you watch? What was your sort of favourite kids' programme when you were growing up? What's the one that really impacted you that you remember?
That's a really good question. Like a lot of people, is it Why Don't You? Remember that show, Is It Why Don't You?
Yeah.
In the summer holidays. And I used to always think of these people as being like really posh, the kids. And every now and then they'd have somebody on there. And then Grange Hill. I'm of that generation. I was at high school probably when Grange Hill started as well. And my high school was nothing like Grange Hill, but I really wanted to be in Grange Hill, but I probably would have been picked on in Grange Hill. And so, yes, Grange Hill, Why Don't You? And then of course, Swap Shop. Swap Shop was a great show. I was, where I grew up, it was either Swap Shop or Tiz was, right? And I was more of a Swap Shop boy, I'm afraid. It probably says quite a lot about me.
That's before my time, Swap Shop and Tiz was, I'm afraid. But Great Show had some really important impacts, though, didn't it? Because it did bring narratives to kids. I was listening to something the other day and someone was saying that storyline where that kid became a drug addict or whatever actually did have a lot of kids who watched Grange Hill running scared for the rest of their lives about taking drugs. So it does actually...
even on a hit single, like Just Say No.
Just Say No,
It was a hit single based on that. It was Zammo, that's what he was called.
Zammo, yeah. And Blue Peter, of course. I remember when I was at school, it's all about that blimmin' Tracy Island. Everyone's parents like, oh, for God's sakes, I've got to like make papier-mâché and get all this rubbish stuff and plants for that blimmin' thing. Everyone was making Tracy Island. Yeah. Or I remember as well, people burying things in their garden for the millennium.
Yes,
like
they did, didn't they?
Memory pods, or what are they called? Like
time capsules.
Time capsules, yeah. I bet now there's someone that's listening to this going, oh my God, I did that. I'm going to go find it. I forgot all about that. And then they'll like unearth some sort of like cassette of New Kids on the Block and Lord knows what.
No. Episode of Crackerjack, that's what you needed. That's how old I am.
See, I liked the niche stuff. Trapdoor was brilliant with Burke and Boney. That was genius. Anyway, we could talk about this all day, but unfortunately we've got to go to an advert break. Arkil, thank you ever so much for coming on. Why don't you let me know what your favourite kids' programme was? I mean, it's Christmas Eve. Let's lighten the mood a bit. We are going to be talking to Andrew Fox after the break about, I don't know, death and war. So why not message me and let me know what you watched growing up? Did you ever, anyone out there know this series, Telebugs? No. It was an 80s thing, very, very niche. I think they only made about sort of 5 episodes. Oh, Bertha. Do you remember Bertha? No. Yeah, Tech Hot Dave knows Bertha. That was an absolute winner. You can watch all the back episodes on YouTube. Bertha was brilliant. Bertha, Trapdoor, Telebugs. That was the height. All right, let me know what you wanted when you were a kid. 03444991000. Let's just cheer it up a bit. WhatsApp me. Voice note me. No one's done that. Give me some voice notes to play with, why don't you? 8722 on text. Put talk before your message. We're on X at talkTV. When we come back, war, death, gloom with Andrew Fox.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Kevin in Southampton says, Alex, The Clangers was a classic. And someone else says, oh my God, Alex, our family loved Trapdoor. I remember Bertha as well. One of the other niche ones was Raggy Dolls. Yeah, I remember Raggy Dolls. And Little Clowns of Happy Town. I don't remember that. And they say I'm exactly the same age as you as Alex, by the way. All the best, Tom. Does that mean your birthday is also on Boxing Day? Is it? Otherwise, you're not exactly the same age, are you? Captain Colin Sonny Worthing. My favourite TV programme. How? Oh, How, yeah. Do you remember How? Yes. Oh, yeah, actually, yeah, How. That's more like Star Trek, right, with the claw, How. Yes, Trapdoor going down a storm. Trapdoor was amazing.
It was good. They were sort of little plasticine-y
things, Burke and Boney and this thing called Rog and
the trapdoor.
Yeah. And Drut, this like squidgy thing that's
and the little things, amazing. That sort of little slug
worms and all sorts of gubbins. It was amazing. Yeah. Don't make anything like it these days. And also, so I just remembered who else did I used to watch as a kid? Genuine story, Dr. David Bull, because he used to present Newsround.
I think we have to find this. We're going to
try and dig out David Bull from the archives. But seriously, when I was young, I watched him on telly presenting Newsround. I know, weird, isn't it? Yeah. All right, let's cross over now to Andrew Fox, defence expert and research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, who probably also had a childhood. So, Andrew, what was your favourite kids' programme? Before we talk about death and war, let's soften ourselves up for it.
Well, I'm loving your background. It's more like the Alan Partridge Christmas special, mate. It's very cool.
Oh, thanks. Well done for the red. You've got the memo.
But my favourite kids' TV show, I'd go with Thundercats.
Oh, you look like a Thundercats person. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, I see that. Who was the baddie? Because one was Skeletor and one was Mumra.
Mumra.
Was Mumra. So, do you know, even to this day, I actually still call my mum Mumra. I've called her that, like, pretty much my whole life. And she actually signs text messages to me saying, oh, hi, love, what time are you going to be coming home? From Mumra. Brilliant.
I mean, does she get the reference? That's pretty rude.
I don't think she would. I think if I showed her, she might stop calling herself Mumra. But there you are. Good, though. Right, now let's talk about death, war, and how unfit our armed forces are. 1 in 5 not fit to fight. How did that happen? Are these people going to be sort of pen pushers, but essentially need to be ready to go on the front line should they be needed? Or are these potentially going to be people whose job it is to be fit and on the front line?
I've got a fairly sad insight into this because my company, my rifle company, were actually the trial company when they brought in the new fitness standards. Essentially, the Army made the decision that they wanted women on the front line. They knew that most women would get injured or wouldn't pass the existing infantry standards, and so they modernised them. And you can infer into modernisation what you will, but when my blokes finished the new tests, they thought it was the warm-up. No. So the Army's had a real lowering of physical standards over the last couple of years. We know that officer cadets, as fresh second lieutenants, are leaving Sandhurst not fit enough to complete the infantry battle course in Brecon to go and be infantry officers. So the Army has made a huge rod for its own back with the new phys standards, and the correct answer is to improve them. It's that simple.
Wow. Well, blimey, that's not very reassuring, is it? OK, let's talk now about Assad's wife. She's gone over to Russia, in theory, with her husband. Is a bit bored, doesn't like living under the crowded conditions. She is British-born. There's calls now saying, make sure that she doesn't come back here.
Yeah, we're in a Shamima Begum kind of situation, aren't we? Voluntarily marrying into a monstrous regime. Just as Shamima Begum did with ISIS. Now, we've set a fairly clear legal precedent. And actually, when you look at what's been uncovered in Syria since the Assad regime fell, the horrors of the prison, the mass graves, and the general abuses that the Assad regime inflicted on the people of Syria, I mean, this is clearly someone that we don't want back in the UK if we can possibly prevent it.
The Kremlin apparently has denied that she wants to divorce her husband. I don't know where this came from or why they seem to, apart from her living there now. Why Putin's suddenly a sort of divorce lawyer or something. But sticking with the concept of Putin, quite remarkably, Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico has gone over to meet President Putin in Moscow in Russia, shaking his hand. Now, people might be like, well, what's wrong with that? what's wrong with that is increasingly when it comes to things like sanctions and foreign policy, these decisions are being taken at EU level, and Slovakia is a member of the EU, which shows clearly that there is a huge amount of disunity when it comes to the approach to Russia. We knew that anyway. But how significant is it that you've actually got the Prime Minister of Slovakia going and making this visit?
Oh.
Are you still there, Andrew? Have you tuned in to watch Trapdoor or something instead? Oh, no, he's
sorry.
back.
Sorry. Sorry, it's been a bit glitchy. I think I've got you back now.
Yeah, Fico visiting Putin.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really clear example of how many EU countries are really not taking the Russian threat as seriously as they should. I mean, we've seen Germany and the really poor attempts they've made at sanctions due to their reliance on Russian energy. We've seen various pro-Putin statements from places like Hungary, and the simple fact is that Mr. Trump is coming in January, and we can expect Mr. Putin to potentially have an easier ride on the international front from the Trump administration. So I think perhaps Mr. Fico is reading the tea leaves. There is plenty to gain from Russia in terms of what they can provide in terms of energy and purchases of various of arms, etc. So I don't know if Slovakia have got one eye on the future post January 20th, or whether they just don't take what Russia has done and the atrocities they've committed in Ukraine seriously. Either way, it's a really poor show.
I've got sort of pre-Christmas mind blur. Was it Fico who got shot a while ago? It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he seems to have recovered perfectly well, hasn't he? Oh, I'd completely forgotten about that until I saw his name. Do we know who did that? Wasn't it supposed to be like a hardline leftist who wrote poetry or something?
Something like that. It was a very strange story around it.
It was a very strange story indeed. OK, and let's now talk about Israel and the exploding pager plot. I mean, that was one of the huge stories, wasn't it, of this year? Pretty remarkable. What are we hoping for in the new year in the Middle East? Because at one point it seemed to me like we were getting back into the sort of territory that there could be a ceasefire agreed, but it sort of slipped away again.
Yeah, I mean, crystal ball here. I mean, in terms of Gaza ceasefire, Hamas have very few cards to play. The one card they have to play is the hostages. If they can get through this and survive, then they've got a very good chance of actually recovering at least the majority of control over Gaza. It's very easy to kill their goons. And I'm all for killing goons, but it doesn't really achieve strategic goals of replacing Hamas's governance in Gaza. And I've still not seen any plan by the IDF or Israel to make that change happen. I expect Hamas will be trying to get through to the new year, continue trying to attack Israel on the international stage. And we've seen a slew of reports in advance of the Trump administration and their record levels of pro-Israel support in his new cabinet. They're essentially reinventing international law to try and make it fit Israel. It's astonishing. And now they're pumping out what they say is evidence to support their new definition of genocide. So there's a very clear strategy here from the Hamas side, and they're going to keep it going as long as they can. More broadly, obviously, it's a huge win in Lebanon. Israel have absolutely destroyed Hezbollah. They're now nothing more than a regional militia. Their pipeline of resupply has been cut off through Syria. Iran is looking weaker than ever. The one region I'm seriously concerned about is Syria.
Right, yeah. I wanted to ask you about that.
On the ground. Yeah.
Right, so let's talk about Syria. Because I was at a dinner last night, and mainly with Americans, and they seem quite relaxed about all of this. Like, oh, well, he did a press conference when he was actually wearing a suit, and he said he's going to protect minorities. Well, A, we've already seen that Christmas trees have been sort of set on fire and things like that. B, how he's going to protect minorities, even if he wanted to, I don't know, because it's so factionalised and disparate in Syria. And C, I'm not sure I believe him. Where do you stand on this lot?
I mean, I think at the moment you're looking at the wrong part of Syria. North and east Syria is where it's at the moment. The Turkish-backed SNA are attacking the American-backed Kurds in the SDF. It's an acronym soup. But the bottom line is I've got a friend on the ground in Idlib, and they tell me the Kurds are packing their bags. They think this is going to go really badly for them. Why is that important? Well, they're the Turkish-backed faction, the SNA. There are two really bad things that will come from this. First of all, the Kurds will have to flee. Secondly, the ISIS prison camps are in that area of Syria, and there's 50,000 ISIS jihadi fighters who may well be freed at the end of this if those camps are liberated. And the logical thing that will then happen is that the SNA will turn on the guys in Damascus that you were talking about, HTS. And so HTS, they're currently trying to consolidate their grip on power. They only have about a third of Syria. And there's a very sensible reason that they're playing so nice at the moment, is that they know, should the Turkish-backed troops in Syria win the victory that they're likely to in the Kurdish area, then they're going to turn on HTS next. So they're trying to shore up their alliances now before what's probably going to be the next phase of the civil war, if everything goes as badly as I worry that it will.
Oh, there you go. What a positive Christmas message from Mr. I like killing goons Fox. That was the best line, can I just say, of today. I support killing goons. Brilliant. Merry Christmas, everyone. Let's go out on a goon hunt. Thank you ever so much, Andrew Fox, Defence Expert and Research Fellow at the Henry Jackson Society. Now, when I come back after this break, it's more of your messages and your calls. Thank you for Trapdoor. Also, Button Moon, Banana Man.
Yes.
Oh, Button Moon was great. Wait, was it Acacia Lane Banana Man lived, or was that some other man?
No, that was him.
Danger Mouse, of course. And someone's got an older series here, Wooden Tops, Bill and Ben, Listen and Watch with Mother. I was just about old enough to get the tail end of Watch with Mother.
But I don't think it was...
on video.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was really aimed at us. My husband remembers that and said it wasn't actually that great.
The weirdest things was Finger Mouse. How they got away with making that as a program? It's just a bit of paper on someone's index finger.
But it was a real mouse when you were watching it. That was definitely a mouse. Wasn't a man with a paper mouse.
Don't know what they're putting on your series. Right, OK, let's take a short break now, and well, don't go anywhere. We're going to be discussing all sorts of things with you when I get back.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
You are reminding me of all sorts of caucus in my childhood. Super Ted, it's a good one.
Yeah.
That was brilliant. Now, this one, Kaz in Bedford, has come up with some quite niche ones, but I do remember Puddle Lane and Pigeon Street.
I think that was a little bit after I was watching.
The Giddy Game Show, I don't remember. Wurzel Gummidge, of course, I remember him. He's quite scary, actually, Wurzel Gummidge. And I tell you who else I hate. I hate that Sammy ad. Do you remember the Sammy ad? This horrible little mangy creature that would pop out of the stand and harass children.
No.
And I did not like it.
Do you think that was only on your television?
No, but it was a thing, and it was grim. I did not care for the Sammy ad at all. Bagpuss, very strong contender. I've actually got Bagpuss on my Christmas tree because I'm awesome.
Oh, I love a Bagpuss.
And this actually wins the award for the best niche children's programme that I've just been reminded of, which is The Mysterious Cities of Gold. No one familiar with that? Yeah, Tech Op Dave knows them all. I think Tech Op Dave just goes home at night and watches kids' programmes from the 1980s. But, tune! You're a fool if you dare! Oh, that was the best.
It's my train journey home now watching that.
Fun story. Mysterious Cities of Gold had these two kids called Zia and Esteban who flew around on this golden condor trying to find lost Aztec cities in Peru or Inca cities in Peru or something like that. Anyway, so obsessed was I with this programme that for a period of my childhood I insisted on being called Zia. Changed my name. That's what I'm called now. Zia.
It went well then, didn't it?
Well, a bit of a mess now. You got Zia in a reform.
Exactly.
Which Zia do you want? OK, let's speak to Tim in Lancashire. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Alex. All right. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. What do you want to talk about, my darling?
Yeah, happy upcoming birthday as well. Well, firstly, I'll try and not make you blush like I did last time.
Did you make me blush? What did you say last time? Actually, don't repeat it because it's going to make me blush.
No, I told you the most entertaining, interesting, intelligent and spirited presenter on the airwaves.
Oh,
so,
I'll take that. I'll take that today. I'm feeling a bit pre-Christmas jaded, so instead of blushing, I'll just allow that to sort of absorb into my internal soul battery and recharge the old spirits.
Right, Keir Starmer.
Oh, there you go. That didn't last long, did it? Thanks. OK.
Right, listen, you might be a bit young for this, but when we were at school, there used to always be a smart aleck in the playground that came round going, Constantinople is a very long word. If you can't spell it, you're a dunce. Right, and then obviously the kids would see, oh, I can't do it. Oh, you can't spell it? No, I can't. IT, haha, you're a dunce, right? So Keir Starmer's the smart aleck in the playground, and the general British public are the dunces because he keeps whatever he told the pensioners, the WASPy people, the national insurance. I told you I wasn't going to increase national insurance, but I didn't say I wasn't going to do it for the hard-working small businesses, the employers, and the freebies. It was within the rules, but I didn't say we weren't going to be morally bankrupt, you know.
Yeah, and,
It is like... It's like...
He's just basically he just tells lies, doesn't he? He's hoodwinking us. He's playing with us. We are for growth. We're not going to increase taxes on working people. And you're like, well, you have increased taxes on working people because working people employ other working people, and you're definitely not increasing growth, are you, sunshine?
No, you just reminded me of something else. What do you do when you've got a malfunctioning robot?
Kick it?
No, reboot it. Well, yeah, pretty much reboot it.
Well, I don't know. I've never had a robot, so I'd probably lose my temper with it, to be honest, and biff it over the head.
Computer stroke robot, then you reboot it, don't you? So you need rebooting anyway.
That's just reminded me, actually, of the Jetsons. Where I grew up watching the Jetsons, and I was expecting robots at this point in time. Where are they? Yeah. Where's my sort of like little robot maid who's sort of cleaning my kitchen?
Was that an American thing, the Jetsons? Or?
I don't know. I think it probably was. Yeah.
I remember, I sort of vaguely remember them, but yeah. All right, well, listen, have a great birthday. You deserve it, and keep up the good work.
Oh, thank you, Tim. Lovely speaking to you, my darling, and I'm no doubt we'll speak either between my birthday and the new year or in the new year. And so happy new year to you as well. Let's speak to David, who is in London. Hi, David.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, love. What do you want to talk about?
First of all, red does suit you.
Does it? I don't normally wear red. I kind of...
Yeah. I'm just phoning out, Alex, about the economy.
Yes.
Alex, I think it's difficult for any business to do business now because the road constrictions continually being implemented. Taking people's ability to get around by a car has a cascading effect because cars are vital for so many aspects of the economy to function. To give you one example, when people go to restaurants, getting into a car is standard. If you take people's ability to get away to do it in a car, then obviously restaurants are going to be affected.
Yeah. Do you know, this is so true, right? They're talking about all these other things they need to get Britain moving again and invest in infrastructure for our economy. They did say they were going to fill up all the potholes, let's be fair. It's the 20-mile-per-hour zones I can't get on board with. And what I find now is you're so demonised driving a car. You feel the minute you get behind the wheel, something is going to get you, right? You're going to accidentally go 23 in a 22, or you're going to find yourself because of congestion stuck in a box and you're going to be fined. Then I kind of feel I don't want to drive. It's miserable now. They've taken all the joy out of driving. And I think that David's got a good point. It does make you, I mean, I don't know what it's like out there in the wilds, but certainly in London, it just makes you go, I can't be bothered driving, you know, I don't want to go there because...
It's a painful process. It's expensive. You're worried that cameras are coming at you from all directions and then there's nowhere to park. Or if you do find somewhere to park, it's half a mortgage to the car parking company to allow you to have a small space. Yeah. And it's just difficult. Everything is difficult and you just think, get a train.
They do nothing about real criminals and they criminalise the rest of society. They treat us like we're absolute...
Cash cows.
Cash cows, there you go. I was thinking of another C word, frankly. No, they treat us dreadfully while letting other people actually get away with dreadful things. And it's just, yes, miserable owning a car these days, isn't it? Anyway, there you go. I'm not going anywhere for Christmas. I'm just going to, I don't know, be around in London. So don't need to worry about that. OK, going to take a short break now, but don't go anywhere because when I come back, we're going to be catching up with Stephen Wolfe, Director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, to talk about more joyful things like the huge surge in migration, a story that never goes anywhere. Stay tuned. I am back just after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
welcome back to the show, and it's Christmas Eve. That's right. What are you doing? Are you wrapping presents? Are you just slowly getting sozzled on the sofa? Are you doing some last-minute Christmas shopping? And I'm kind of keeping you company as you like whiz around like someone on supermarket sweep on the high street, trying to get that thing for your husband. They're so difficult to buy for, men. I mean, they're the worst, aren't they? It's like, what do you want? No, they don't want anything, but they want something, but they don't know what they want.
No, and whatever you get them, they'll go, yeah, that's great. And you think, well, a bit more excitement.
So I've got a thing I do. I've got a thing I do now, which is instead of it's such a pain in the backside getting jumper for dad, and my brother's the worst. He's like, I don't want anything. It's like, well, alcohol for you then, sunshine. Yeah. Then what I do now, and my mum, whatever you get her, she'll go and then she won't like it. She will not like it. Whatever it is, it won't be what she wanted. So you kind of just buy it yourself, and I'll just sign the label. But it is sort of like, by the time everyone's spent everything on everybody, it's easier just to cancel it out, which would be a bit Scroogey and not in the spirit of Christmas. So what I now do is I organise something. I pay for a load of tickets that we can all do later on in the year. We'll get back together as a family and do a thing.
Yeah, that's what we did this year. We had a little holiday last week, and that was our Christmas present to ourselves. And with my best friend, who also lives next door, the four of us are going out for dinner in the new year. When everything is miserable, we've booked to go out for dinner, so we've got things planned.
Yeah, so my sister-in-law just messaged me going, I remember Bertha. Do you, Bex? My sister-in-law's about 10 years younger than me. But my Christmas present to Bex was, you don't have to buy me a birthday present.
Yes.
There you are. Merry Christmas. Don't
Merry
buy
Christmas.
me a birthday present. Whee! But we're probably going to go and do something together. And some of your messages before we get into migration, because I like to keep it all, weird, and you guys are weird, so let's read out your messages. Carol from Clacton says, just heard you're coming to Lanzarote after Christmas. We're here and the weather is glorious. Get in. Where are you, Carol? Shall we go for a pina colada? I know a place that makes them really strong and it overlooks the sea. Now, in the children's programmes category again, Galaxy High. I remember Galaxy High. Yeah. For me, actually, thinking about it, what defined my teenage years, this sort of later childhood, was Saved by the Bell.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Everybody loves Saved by the Bell.
Everyone loves Saved by the Bell. Everyone growing up had a crush on someone from Saved by the Bell as well. You did, Claire. Zach Morris. Of course, you were team Zach. What were you, Alicia? She's grimacing at me through the glass. Don't tell me you liked Screech. I bet you did. Yeah, she likes Screech, I can tell. Neil says Teabag. I think that's when my other half used to watch. I don't even know what that is, but I've heard him talk of this. Dungeon Master. Not heard of that one?
Don't think so. I think I might, or there was something called Nightmare, which I think was also very similar.
Amazing.
That was good.
Like, when you were a kid, did you ever actually reenact Nightmare by putting a bucket on someone's head and just sort of going 2 steps forward, 1 step to the side?
I don't think I did that. I would quite like to, though.
That's what we're doing after the show.
That's it.
Well, with Tech Up Dave, we'll play. Tech Up Dave's obviously going to have the bucket on his head.
Well, clearly.
I'm in the throne, clearly, so I am, the sort of nightmare man, and we can sort of direct him to see if he can go make a cup of tea.
Yes.
Do you like that, Tech Up? No. Okay. This is where he's going to start playing music and stuff and messing with my head. He's got all the buttons, Tech Up Dave. You don't want to get on the wrong side of him. Wombles, Moonmints, Battle of the Planets. What's that? I don't know that one. See, Revenge of Tech Up, that is.
What's that?
What is that? That's not. How did you know that? Oh yeah, he reads the messages, you see, as well. But that's weird. I thought that you were sort of like in my head. Like in inner space, in a little capsule, a cockpit, living in there. In my frontal lobe or something. I've never heard of Battle of the Planets, but it had a good sort of strong, patriotic, energising soundtrack. Not like all the stuff they have today, which is all like, da, 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 ow, ow, ow. Everything's a bit wimpy today, isn't it?
Well,
they don't have like
bit.
fighting and...
No, but that's what we were like Grange Hill, wasn't it? Because everybody got into a fight in the playground.
It's quite tough, wasn't it?
It was, and my school wasn't like that, so it was sort of like lived vicariously through a television programme.
And someone's just said Morph from Tony Hart. Oh, Tony Hart. He was a lovely man. He was really lovely. But amazing that we were entertained by just some sort of
somebody drawing.
Plasticine.
Yeah, or somebody drawing something. And you were sort of having a look.
Tony Hart,
he was
loved
great.
him. He was like everyone's granddad.
He was,
I loved it. Is he still with us? I don't know. And this is where I need my other half, because he literally knows everyone's death. He's like a weird Wikipedia of obituaries. Anyway, it's a very niche skill.
Fun dinner parties
Very
at your
weird.
house.
Yeah, very weird skill. Let's speak to Steve Moore, Director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity. We are going to be talking about migration, of course. But before we do, because we're being a bit loosey-goosey because it's Christmas Eve, Stephen, I want to know about your favourite kids' programme when you were growing up.
Oh, that has every winner for me. Nothing can beat it. Absolute kids of fame. Kids from fame. Loved everything. Dancing in the street, dancing.
No, I didn't know. Well, I know the film Fame. Never seen it, actually.
Yeah.
You never saw the episode? Oh my God, I was stuck to it. Literally, my mum couldn't get me dancing off the sofa.
I could picture you as sort of someone who did dancing as a kid. Did you go to the local youth centre and learn to break dance or anything like that?
I was Manchester's first breakdance champion in 1987.
Is that actually true?
Absolutely true. I thought your other shows have had that. They've tried to get me to breakdance on bloody GB News.
No. This is why you don't come into the studio, isn't it? Because that information would have found its way to me, and I'd be like, spit on your head then. Go on your head.
Yeah, oh my God, that's why this wrist is knackered today, trust me.
What, because you've been breakdancing?
Yeah, I fell on it. Someone pushed me when I was doing a head spin.
So you still do breakdancing?
Oh, no.
So this is historic injury.
57. If I tried to do breakdancing, the only breaking would be my bones.
Yeah, well, I hear your pain, Wolf. Right, now let's talking about pain and feeling it. Let's talk about this surging migration numbers mean a recent drop in living standards is likely to be worse than first thought, economists have warned. Revised figures from the Office for National Statistics published on Monday showed GDP per head fell by 0.2% in 12 months. However, those figures relied on outdated migration figures that imply the population is smaller than it really is. Finally, the truth is being told, because for ages they said to us, we need immigration, it grows GDP, we need it, it's really good for the economy. No, it's not. Everything's rubbish, nothing works, waiting lists are enormous, everything looks a mess, no one's got as much money anymore because there's too many mouths to feed, and frankly it's impoverishing the country. I think Germany actually published the assessment of what the impact of all the migration to Germany had been, and came up with a figure in billions of how much it cost the German economy. What do you reckon it cost our economy?
Well, I've estimated now that it's about £8 billion just for asylum and immigration over the past 5 years. So that's 40 billion. If you look at a 10-year period, I'd probably put the cost of what we've had to pay out somewhere in the region of 60, 70 billion. That's dwarfed by Germany's 100 billion euros in 10 years. But we're a smaller country with a smaller economy. And then if you add on the fact that we've lost probably about 5% of our GDP per capita, that's the living standards that you talked about on average, each of the 10 years, then again in your pocket, on average salaries now about 33,000 a year. Then you probably lost about 5,000 on that as well. And then finally, the big thing that I would say is, in order to pay this, you've had more taxes taken out. So I would say that if you didn't have the mass immigration that we've got, people would probably have at least 2 to 3% in terms of income tax taken off, and at least another couple of percent on our VAT and national insurance.
So work this out, right, if you can, or if you've done it already, and what that means per year per person. How much is this? How much does it cost me in 2024 for all of these migrants to be here?
Well, it depends if you're taking out children as well. You've got 66 million of us, and we've paid 30 billion. It's at least 1% to 1.5% of income tax. So take that off your own salaries. I would probably say somewhere in the region, pre-tax, about £800 to £1,000 just a year to pay for, on an average, 35,000, £1,000 a year just to pay for them coming in. But that doesn't include the living standards fall, though. I'm estimating that most people would be about 5,000 better off since about 2010 if we'd not had the large-scale migration that we've got.
Honestly, we should go to the government and say, you owe us that money, not from our own coffers. No, you don't get to take it around from the Treasury. You need to do a whip around of every single MP especially the rich ones, and everyone in the House of Lords and everyone else who has presided over this since the mass migratory waves, you can do a whip round and give it back to us, thank you very much, because we did not ask for this. And when we demanded that we didn't want it, we were ignored.
I'd go one step further.
Yeah, go on.
If you don't mind. I'd take it from every member of the Treasury that have been polluting the economic atmosphere with the idea that you can just improve our country's economics by GDP and ignore GDP per capita and GNI per capita. I'd also take it off all the lecturers who are teaching them economics at Oxford, Cambridge, Durham, and the top 10, who are all Keynesians, who believe in the same ridiculous GDP, and all the civil servants that have been backing this and hiding this. They've been a dereliction of duty for the last decade, if not more, by promoting the idea that large-scale migration improves our economy. They're the ones who have been polluting our economics, the ideas and the policies that our politicians have been relying upon.
Good. I'm glad we've got a bigger list of people, because it's a pretty big bill. Now, this is quite a sad story, really. It's also quite a farcical story, which is at least 270 migrants have died in the UK while awaiting a decision on their asylum application since 2015. Home Office data released in response to a Freedom of Information request show the majority of those who died, 171 of them were male. 3 of them were teenagers or children. But it just goes to show, doesn't it, how ridiculously long and drawn out the asylum process is, that actually people are dying here waiting to have it confirmed whether they can stay here or not.
Yeah, I mean, it is an awful figure, just as the numbers that have, a couple of hundred people that have died in the Channel as well. Those are the estimates that have gone there. And this is all down to a failure of deterrence, first of all, by our governments. And again, going back to those same civil servants and policymakers that have been backing the politicians, although there's a lot more on the politicians than this time. They had their chance to be able to do something about it and failed to do it. And so the deaths are on their heads. I've always said this, whether you are Macron, whether the EU, whether you're the Conservative Party, whether you're the Labour Party, the deaths in the Channel and the deaths in the asylum process are on your heads because you failed to put the deterrence and stop it coming over. The second thing I would like to say about those numbers, and I've not really analysed them in great detail, to be fair, Alex, and so I don't want to, is how many were natural causes, how many were suicides. I think the suicides would be much more upsetting to me, because all of those people in the process have access to our NHS. So if they had underlying illnesses, heart attacks, and some other major illness, then that would have happened in any event, whether they were in the process of the system or not. So I'd like to dig deeper into that. But nonetheless, any death that is occurring in our system is a failure of these politicians not to have stopped this happening in the first place.
No, I totally agree. And, we can add to the list of offences committed indirectly by politicians who have failed to do anything to stop, really, the illegal migration. And like you say, it is actively preventing deaths, but it's also actively preventing money being funneled to terrorist organisations.
Oh, absolutely.
So, it's just, it's egregious, frankly, that they haven't taken decisive action. And you have to wonder why. Now, people who say they would take decisive action, Reform UK, unsurprisingly, soaring in the polls. It seems that they're now saying that their membership could well overtake the Conservative Party's membership within a month. They were 11,000 behind the current membership numbers. So I think they've got a live tracker going on, which no doubt is helping boost those numbers. Clever little ploy, that. Is that they're on 125,376 to the Conservatives' 131,680. So just a whisker behind, really, in the grand scheme of things, about 6,000 odd people. The Conservatives should be very, very concerned by this, especially with local elections taking place next year, if old Sir Keir the tyrant allows them to happen.
Oh, I think they are. I mean, look, I'm not a member of Reform, and Reform have not asked me to join them, so I can speak honestly and clearly about their rise, and I think their rise is incredibly significant. Of course, it comes down to the leadership of Nigel Farage, who's talismanic and will always remain that kind of individual that is capable of drawing together the people who've been left behind, who've been ignored. But they've also building a bigger and stronger and a more important team. Their chief executive, clearly understands how to use the finances that they've got. They've brought in a fabulous, as you said, media and comms team and chief executive support team that are actually bringing out brilliant ideas like the tracker. But on top of that, they're generating that enthusiasm that we saw in the People's Army in UKIP and that you saw when you were elected as an MP and MEP in the Brexit Party. And that is translating across the country. And I think anybody that's ignoring the fact that they're creating policies, not just on immigration, but on the police, their challenge to the Greater Manchester Police and going for a private prosecution, again, was another genius move. And all of that with a party that didn't have significant funding. And now you see Nick Candy coming in with the potential. And look at the criticism people are already putting in the Telegraph today from Charles Moore, that the British people won't support a party when a billionaire like Elon Musk might put money behind them. But hang on a minute, there's been billionaires backing the Labour Party and billionaire organisations like BlackRock supporting the Prime Minister through its chief executive, and he meets with them individually, as you saw with the directors of BlackRock, in number 10. So billionaires and their supporting organisations have been working with our leaderships of the two existing main parties for generations. Yeah. So I don't see there's any argument, but I do see a very important management issue and control and expansion, and all well to them. And if they do that, not only will the Conservatives be worried, which I think they already are, but the Labour Party, I believe, desperately should be worried about it, and good for them.
Yeah, I was saying this last night. I mean, you know from our UKIP days together that back in UKIP's heyday, 1/3 of the vote came from the Conservative Party, 1/3 from people who'd never voted at all, and 1/3 came from Labour. And those 98 second places that Reform got, largely in Labour seats, the Red Wall seats, are they going to go back to the Conservatives? I would imagine not. So if I was Sir Keir Starmer, I would be very worried, which is probably why he's gerrymandering politics at the moment, like the true little dictator that he is. Doesn't particularly sit well with me. Stephen, thank you ever so much, and go
My
practice.
pleasure, and I hope you have a wonderful Christmas. I really do. You, your partner, and everybody at the team at talkTV.
Oh, thank you, Stephen. And do you know what I want for my present?
What is that?
I want you to go and practice spinning on your bonce and show me in the new year. I mean it. I want all of this. Yeah, all of that.
Well, maybe I might need some more of my kale and orange juice treats that I have in the morning to give me the energy to do that.
No, but you're getting old enough now that you'll just be sort of really stiff. So put a bit of Vaseline on your head and get someone to tip you upside down and just spin you. You'll be like a dreidel. All right. Thank you ever so much, Stephen. Great to catch up with him.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Steve. Right, let's take a short break now, and when we come back, it's time for you to join us in a chorus of common sense in communal catharsis. 03444991000 is the number if you'd like to be patched through to the studio to talk about, well, whatever, really. It's Christmas Eve. We don't care. All the bosses aren't in. I can say and do what I like. If you're listening at home, hi, Ricky. 8722 is the number to text. Put talk before your message. We're on X at talkTV, and I am back after this.
the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hello there, welcome back to the show. Alex Phillips here with you for another half an hour, really, and then that's it. I'm off for Christmas. I'm going to go home and tend to making my gravy and my stuffing and bits and bobs in advance. I might even try and make some homemade advocaat, homemade eggnog.
Ooh.
I love that stuff.
Yeah, I do.
It's
underrated.
It's so
really
underrated. It's so good. And technically, I don't know why, but it's only ever allowed at Christmas. You'd never get someone in sort of March going, oh, fancy a little shot of this.
But I think you could try that.
Stagger
I think because stagger it so it's not all one joy at the end of the year.
If you want to know how legendary my parents are, when I was living in Kenya, I was there for a year. When I was being picked up after a year of being in East Africa, my dad came to pick me up from the airport with my gazillions of suitcases. So I wanted to go see them before going on my merry way. And he said, any requests? And he turned up at the airport with a bottle of advocaat and allowed me to just sit in the back of the car nicking it like this. Yeah.
Amazing.
What a legend.
It is a bright colour as well, isn't it?
It's beautiful. Anything made of eggs is worthwhile. Eggs are just the food of... And, by the way, I don't know if anyone out here can tell me where to access this, but turkeys make good eggs, apparently. Yeah, to eat. Turkey eggs are apparently really good. Yeah. That's what I've heard. I've not tried any because where on earth does one get turkey eggs? But I now want to, as someone who loves eggs.
To my extended age, not knowing that.
I know. Well, obviously they'll lay eggs. They're birds. I mean, how many? What other eggs can you eat? I want to add more to my egg repertoire.
Well, duck
quail eggs. Everyone has quail eggs.
Duck eggs.
You know, a Waitrose shopper. I've eaten an ostrich egg. Yeah, I have eaten an ostrich egg. They're really hard to get into. You actually need to access an ostrich egg with tools.
Goose eggs are very different.
I love goose eggs. Yeah. You can just about crack them yourself. I had one the other day. I actually, because normally geese only lay between about Valentine's Day and the summer, max. But my little farm shop that I go to, Galileo Farms, ladies and gentlemen, go online. They are brilliant. I went there because they've got a stand at the local farmers market. They're so good. And they had a goose egg. And I was like, that's out of season. And the kid there was like, no. It's because we had a really cold snap where it snowed for a bit. Then it warmed up.
Delayed.
And the geese thought, it's spring.
Amazing.
And they laid.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But duck eggs as well, I think they're really underrated. They're nice.
I love duck eggs. The only weird thing about duck eggs is the white never goes... It always tastes sort of weird and...
Yeah, it's a bit sort of clear and
and
runny.
Thin.
Yes.
But I quite like it because it burns underneath you. It crisps up well.
Yeah, it does. So if you could put them in the frying pan, it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, do you know what? This is... If Ricky's watching at home, I'm going to look at my phone and there's going to be a text because I'm banned from talking about food. But Ted, who's normally my producer, he's acting up today. He's being Ricky. And so I now expect him to come through that door like Ricky menaces me. Oh, Ted's gone. It's Phil Dave. Well, Phil Dave's sound. He doesn't care. Phil's amazing. He'll just you get on with it, Alex. You say what you like. You do what you like. He's got an odd job hat on today, doesn't he, Phil Dave? Looking good in that hat. Right. Anyway, let's get to the phone, shall we, and speak to Malcolm, who is in Devon. Hi, Malcolm.
Hi, Alex. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Very well. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I was just thinking about your telly programmes he's on about.
Oh, yeah, the kids ones.
When we was kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we was kids, we used to watch Saturday mornings. We used to watch the Banana Splits, Buck Rogers in the 21st Century, and the Arabian Nights, when they pulled the donkey's tail and went, kazoo, kazaa, or something, and the donkey spun round and beat everybody up.
What?
I'm here for this.
Arabian Nights.
What era was this, Malcolm?
Well, this would have been the early 80s, because I'm 58.
Ah, I see. Yeah, it's a decade before my time.
Gonna have to find it, though.
I want to see this Kazoon Kazam donkey.
It's the Banana Split.
Oh, Banana Split.
That's the Banana Split.
Yeah.
Ah.
Remember that. They wore pyjamas.
Listen to how happy people were back there.
Exactly.
Sir Keir Starmer wasn't
Simple.
in power. Joy was in the world.
Bananas in pyjamas.
Bananas.
That's the other
There's
thing,
a lot. Banana Man, bananas in pyjamas, banana splits, banana-themed
Life was
programmes.
simpler.
Did you just say perverts?
I said life was simpler.
I thought you said perverts
No,
for
I
some
didn't.
reason.
I said bananas.
I'm going mad. Maybe it's because I was thinking pugwash in the back of my head, because that's the one that, you know. Yeah.
Indeed. left in the back
Hogwash
of your
and
mind.
the double entendre, definitely. I don't think, but a lot of programs back then. So my brother's got 3 kids, right? And I think he pretty much hates the programs they watch. There was one that was quite cute, but I mean, Peppa Pig is just dreadful, isn't it? Like, yeah, no one wants to watch that apart from kids are obsessed with it. But I think my mum used to actually love watching the kids' programs with me. I think she used to enjoy them. They were just a better quality, and there was always something I think put into them that adults could also enjoy.
Yeah, some of them are better than others. Some of them are lovely, and some of them you just want to put your head under a cushion and make it go away. I mean, I had that with my son when he was little. And there's some that are awful, but things like In the Night Garden. I strangely became slightly addicted to the very sort of surreal nature of a giant sort of blue thing and small people in little carriages. If you've not seen it,
No, I haven't.
Go find it.
Yeah,
It's a
like
little
good
bit
sort of,
psychedelic.
Bit drunk coming home, get the In the Night Garden on with that shot of whiskey that's going to finalise your hangover. Someone's just said to me here, John from West Ham, best kids programme, Rent-A-Ghost. I don't remember Rent-A-Ghost.
Oh, yes.
But I do
Timothy
remember
Claypole.
at
Yes, I
school,
do.
and I think anyone my age is going to remember this, because I'm turning 41 in 2 days' time, ladies and gentlemen. But when I was a kid, what's that we got now, Dave?
If you want a fun...
Oh, that's Rent-A-Ghost. Dave, have you just sat there and found all of these themes? He's the hardest working tech op in the world. It's Tech Op Dave.
The best.
He's earning his Christmas bonus. But if anyone is my age, undoubtedly at school they would have watched Ghostwriter.
Ghostwriter?
Yeah, Ghostwriter. Yeah. It was these kids who had this sort of like blob that came down and used to write messages on a board and they'd go and solve crimes with the help of this Ghostwriter thing. It was an American thing, but I swear to God, all school kids used to watch Ghostwriter.
No, I don't remember. I remember the Demon Headmaster.
I remember it looked a bit like Jack Straw.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
or
he
maybe
did.
Jacob Rees-Mogg. Maybe
Yeah,
more
sort of
Jack
like-
Straw.
Yeah, Jack Straw.
More Jack
Definitely him.
Straw, yeah. Oh, but there you go. Thank you ever so much, Malcolm in Devon. You can see it's just before Christmas. There's not really any news around, is there? So we're just talking absolute nonsense. Here we go. Early 80s, a Saturday morning Cheggers Plays Pop. Multicoloured swap shop.
Yep.
Don't remember those.
Yeah.
So it's too young for that one. Turkey eggs are delicious, but at £40 per half dozen, it's only a special treat. Why are they 40 quid
40
for 6?
quid?
I mean,
these
are they lazy layers? They just
golden
don't really...
turkeys.
Yeah. Okay.
Where do we get them?
I need more information on the turkey eggs. Where do we get them?
Yeah.
Why is it 40 quid a dozen? Why do they taste so good? I need to now know about turkey eggs.
But also, what do you do? Fry them? Are they better poached?
Yeah, I want all the details. I want to know whether, when I get my 40 quid
What do I do with
turkey
it?
eggs, what am I
How
doing? 'Cause you don't
long
want to
do
mess
I
it
keep
up.
it? No, you
You're
don't,
spending
not
that
for
much.
that.
Yeah, you don't.
40 quid.
How much? It's like £8 an egg almost, or something.
Pretty much.
Or 7 quid. I can't do maths.
No,
I'm
I can't. I'm just looking at you blankly.
We're both like, yeah,
I'll
that'll
do.
8 times table, anybody?
Expensive.
Anyway, yeah, that is expensive. So let me know about turkey. Let me know about all eggs. Let me know about anything. Let's speak to Lynn, who's in North Bedfordshire. Hi, Lynn.
Hi. Oh, hello.
Hello, my love. How? Sorry, I took you by surprise there because we're just, freestyling and filling the airtime with rubbish conversation. You're like, oh, is she going to come to me ever? Yes, I am. Here I am. Surprise. What do you want to talk about?
Well, many years ago when my late husband was alive and my son was about 6 but was at school at the time, my husband and I sat watching Bod. I don't know if you remember Bod. Yeah, that.
Yeah. Honestly, Tech Op is on fire today, can I just say? Yeah.
And we sat watching this Bod.
Yeah.
And suddenly there became a knock at the door. So I went to the door and there's, lo and behold, a television licence detector man.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it was Bod. I was quite excited then.
Have you got a television licence? Yes, I have, I said. And I went straight to where I knew my licence was, on the shelf behind the clock. And lo and behold, it had been run out for 2 months.
So what did they do?
Fined me £100. And this is about, my son was born in 78, so this is about 83, 84.
Oh, well, with interest,
there was one other person in the village, and they got him at the same time, so they fined us both £100.
Oh,
I know. And I mean, why were we watching Bod in the first place, you know?
It's an expensive programme to watch.
Bod is more expensive than turkey eggs at this point.
Yes, I think it was, yes.
Oh, Lynn, thank you ever so much. I really enjoyed that call. I'm really enjoying all of these calls, actually. Do you know what? When I come back in the new year, who cares about politics and war? Let's just do this. Let's just talk. Maybe if I do this, I'll sort of migrate down the corridor and end up at Virgin Radio. And we've got the right colour. Yeah.
Do you think we can just walk in and nobody would notice?
Do you know, when you see Chris Evans, because we all share a floor, by the way, he's always like bimbling around without shoes on. They don't care down there. They do what they like. Yeah. Ooh. And when Graham Norton used to present, he was sponsored by Marks and Spencer or something, and they'd had trays of sandwiches and luxury items, cakes. I'm like, it's all right if you go down that end of the news, and they got all sorts of good stuff. Well, that end of the news, and where you got Talk Sport, they don't work. They just watch the telly.
I've seen them as you walk out. They're just sitting around having a nice chat.
They sit around watching the football. They've got one of those punch bag machines, haven't they?
The chairs that they've got down there.
The chairs that look like a sort of dugout, whatever it's called.
They're really cool.
And then you get to the middle of the floor where we are. We got nothing. They treat us like rubbish. All the luxuries on either side, and we're like the empty space in what should be a delightful sandwich.
Do you notice, though, that they don't share?
They don't share.
No. They can't eat all those sandwiches themselves.
No, but they don't come and say, does anyone want a sandwich? No, because down there they're probably really woke, aren't they? I'd imagine that side of the news. They were probably evil in their eyes. Right, anyway, going to take a short break now. When we come back, we're going to be paying attention to what's been going on the other side of the pond. We're going to be joined by Matthew Bryser, a former administration official and ambassador under Obama, after this.
On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back to the show. Shall we catch up with Matthew Bryson and find out what's been going on the other side of the pond? I think we shall. Hello, Matthew. Merry Christmas Eve. Are you all prepared for the big day tomorrow?
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you, Julia. Yeah, I think I'm ready. I'm just waiting for my wife's final gifts to be delivered. I just got an email that they're on the way. Thank goodness.
What's your postal service like over there? Are you sort of held hostage in your house as we are in Britain?
Yeah. Oh, there we got the courier services too, delivery services, but yeah, it was just slow on the store side. But I'm as relieved as can be now.
Also, before we get into talking politics and matters sensible, I didn't realise until I was speaking to an American friend the other day that Christmas dinner in America isn't necessarily the same as Christmas dinner in the UK, because you've already done the whole turkey thing at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, but a lot of people do it twice. They do turkey again, or ham is a big traditional food for Christmas Day for a main course. But I had crazy relatives who were Italian American. On one side, we would do an entire Italian dinner with pasta, and then do the turkey thing. So different traditions depending on the ethnicity.
Blimmin' egg, you're going to come out the other side of New Year twice as large, turkey and pasta. Blimey, better go measure your blood pressure on January the 1st.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about Trump, shall we? He's been celebrating his election results, speaking at Turning Point USA's America Fest, a first rally-style speech since winning the 2024 election. He raved about his victory for nearly 10 minutes before transitioning to confidence that he would deliver on his administration's promises, as well as touting his cabinet selections. I reckon he's going to try and get a lot done, isn't he, in his first 100 days?
He is. He's moving fast. I mean, he very quickly nominated all the people for his cabinet positions. They've been actively consulting on Capitol Hill to make sure the confirmation process happens as quickly as possible. He's stated what his ambitions are, like in foreign policy, huge ambitions to end both Israel's war in Gaza and Russia's war in Ukraine, by day one. And he's being treated as the president already in many ways. Emmanuel Macron him at Notre Dame, and his envoys have been talking to the parties to those conflicts that I just mentioned. So he's already begun in a way.
Yeah, do you know, I was out for dinner last night with an American media executive who will remain unnamed, but owns and runs one of your news channels stateside and is a very good friend of Mr. Trump. And we were talking about foreign policy, and he said to me, apparently Donald said to Zelensky, I like you, I want you to win, but you've got to make this easier for me. So that was nice to hear anyway. But when it comes to Panama Canal, perhaps Panama not so pleased with what President Trump has said, which is that he wants to retake control of the Panama Canal if transit fees are not reduced, particularly for US vessels. Of course, everyone's going, oh, isn't he awful? Isn't he dangerous? First, he wanted to buy Greenland. Then he's talked about making Canada another state of the USA. Now he's going to try and steal the Panama Canal off the Panamanians, if that's what you call them. But this is kind of what he does, isn't it? When he wants to get something, he uses that hyperbole. He sort of puts in a ridiculous demand, but it means he gets something a bit lesser. And I wouldn't be surprised if he'd start seeing the transit fees for American vessels come down.
Yeah, I think you put your finger right on it. This is a negotiation, and he's a consummate negotiator. He floats trial balloons. He sees how far he can go. He was at the beginning of the confirmation process I was just talking about a little while ago. He was saying, well, maybe there shouldn't be any confirmations at all. Maybe I should just appoint the people and they get their jobs without the Senate having to confirm them. And that got shot down by the Senate. So he tries, he puts out a trial balloon, and he sees what he can get. And I think you're right. I think he might get a reduction in those transit fees. Yeah.
Now, talking about putting out a trial balloon and seeing what he can get, people have suggested to me that Matt Gaetz may have been one such thing. So when Trump was trying to pick his cabinet and it has to be approved, Matt Gaetz was touted, and I think my understanding is he was probably expecting Matt Gaetz to be rejected, but that means he'd be able to get the person he really wanted, because Matt Gaetz doesn't sound to me like a particularly nice person. The House Ethics Committee report on Matt Gaetz was released on Monday, revealed fresh details about the former congressman's alleged behaviour, at least one new accusation, and essentially it concluded that the former Florida congressman regularly paid women for engaging in sexual activity, had sex with a 17-year-old girl, used or possessed illegal drugs, accepted gifts beyond house limits, helped a woman obtain a passport. It's not good, is it? I mean, Matt Gaetz doesn't sound like a great chap.
Yeah, what a perfect resume for the country's top law enforcement official. Right. I know. It was outrageous. I think Trump knew it. Yeah, like we're saying, trying to see how much he can get away with it. Probably it was sort of a smokescreen, the candidacy, of Gaetz, to take the attention off of a couple of other more controversial candidates, like the candidate to be the head of the National Intelligence Directorate, Tulsi Gabbard, who has visited Bashar al-Assad when he was still in power. She's spoken swimmingly of Vladimir Putin, and she's going to be in charge of the national secrets. So I think he was trying to deflect a little bit of attention, Trump, by Gaetz.
Yeah, but I think it certainly worked. Now, a really horrible story now about a man charged with murder in connection with a woman who was set on fire on a subway train in New York. a horrible monster called Sebastian Zapata, 33, charged with first and second degree murder. I mean, this is shocking. When I read this and when I saw some of the footage, I was absolutely horrified. My feeling is this is just going to add to what I think, a bit like us, a sort of overwhelming feeling now in the nation that there's lawlessness and also how this might be tied to people who've come into the country.
Yeah, well, I mean, one crazed, disgusting, vile crime does not necessarily connote a trend, right? I mean, it's not like this has happened multiple times, but it's terrifying. There's a lot of concern about increasing crime rates in New York City and elsewhere. There was that whole defund the police movement after the gentleman was killed in Minneapolis, Minnesota, by the police. So, a lot of police capabilities weakened over the course of the last few years as the police either weren't getting paid or their morale was destroyed, and many through attrition. Police forces reduced in size as there wasn't money available. So we've seen a terrible crime problem. My hometown is Chicago, and the murder rates have skyrocketed since there was this decrease in funding for the police. It's frightening. But now there's talk now about restoring the funding. It's become a big political issue, the defund the police movement, and I think it's sort of run its course.
Thank goodness. I've got a really good American friend called Charlton, and she's been over in living in London, working here for a few months now. And she lives down in Canary Wharf, and she says, I had the police the other night, and there were kids, and there was this and that. And she said, but at least the one thing about London is I feel safe getting the tube. And she said the New York subway is just horrific, especially for women. Horrific. She says it's dangerous.
Yeah, it is pretty scary. I mean, New York's gone through some phases where, in the 80s, it was terrifying. Then in the 90s and 2000s, it started to get cleaned up in terms of crime, and it's back on that downward trend again. And it is frightening. And there, for God's sake, you saw what just happened with the CEO of United Health, who was shot to death. Right at 6:30 in the morning, walking into the Hilton Hotel. Scary. Again, that doesn't connote a trend necessarily, one murder, but the fact that he was able to get away with that without, anyone really noticing. That's kind of frightening.
Yeah, well, it's terrifying. It's very terrifying. And before I let you go, let's talk about something more positive. Let's talk about Trump's inauguration. I'm expecting this to be a big razzmatazz occasion. I'm going to be there for it, actually. I'm coming over to the States for it, which I'm very excited about. So I hope it delivers.
You'll love it. It's totally festive. So many parties, so many inauguration balls, great mood, really upbeat mood no matter who gets elected president. The parade's fun. And it's just like a big, happy party. Of course, the Democrats will be unhappy that Donald Trump's going to be the president again. But even partisan people, it's hard for people not to feel upbeat during inauguration time. So enjoy. Maybe I'll see you there. I
think that's a really good idea. Yeah, hopefully we will catch up with each other. Matthew, thank you for coming on the programme. I think it's quite a nice idea having, we've got a new president. Woo! Let's get out the, floats and the music and all the parties. But could you imagine, after the snap election, so Keir Starmer and everyone be like, wah.
It's not exactly party time, is it? It's not, there's not going to be a great ball with Keir Starmer, everybody dressed up, having fun. Doesn't really strike me as that kind of guy.
We do it really in a really British way, don't we? No inauguration, just the official photograph of the first meeting of cabinet.
Well, we also expect them to get on with the job the day after the election, don't we? It's like, you've had your moment. Off you go. Crack on, love.
Get on with work. Right, going to take a short break now, but stay tuned, because after the break, I'm going to be telling you what you should watch on telly. I know I don't normally do this because I don't really watch telly, but all of us, right? It gets to Christmas time, you start drinking at about, 6 o'clock in the morning when you go down to get your gravy on and this, that and the other, and that sort of carries on throughout the day, and so at some point you inevitably find yourself head-lolling, Christmas hat slumped over one eye, watching something a bit like that as you drool onto your shoulder. And so we all need to know what it is we're going to be napping to tomorrow. We're going to be doing that just after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. Do you know, Claire, we missed one of the most important kids' programmes. We've been talking about kids' programmes all morning, and there's one that we haven't actually discussed. And it's a big one.
Go on, tell me.
Rainbow! The amount of people have messaged me about Rainbow.
Zippy and Bungle.
Zippy, I love Zippy. Yeah, I had a goldfish called Bungle. Bungle used to freak me out a little bit.
But he also went to bed wearing sort of pyjamas and then took them off for the rest of the programme during the day. So it's either you wear clothes or you don't bear. Come on.
I'm having a very strange conversation with my boyfriend, who, if he's listening now, I'm not going to be in his good books for saying this. We're having one of those conversations about, you know, who he had crushes on as a kid. Yeah. And he said he used to fancy, who was Sooty's girlfriend?
Sue.
Sue, yeah. He used to fancy Sue. But, all right.
That's quite an admission.
Quite weird.
Yeah, no, no.
Sorry, Nicholas, my darling. Right, let's get Hannah Hope on, shall we? Showbiz columnist at The Sun. Hi, Hannah. How are you?
Hello. Very good, thank you, Alex.
Oh, fantastic. What was your favourite kids programme when you were growing up?
Oh, my goodness. I used to love Sesame Street.
Oh, yeah, Sesame Street.
Bit of Elmo and Big Bird, you couldn't go wrong.
That's true. Was it Oscar the Grouch?
Yes.
Yeah, I liked him. Yeah. He was the best. Right, now, what have we got to look forward to on Christmas Day? As we all sort of drink a bit too much and have a little sleep on the sofa?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Alex. On Christmas Day, once you've eaten your turkey and, you know, cracked open the bubbles, there's not really much else to do other than settle in front of the TV. But I've got to say, this year, the creme de la creme is Gavin and Stacey. It's coming back for its finale. Are you a fan of the show?
Yeah, I love it. Which day is that on?
That's good. So that's on at 9. That's on the BBC. But it's an hour-and-a-half special. And there's been some inkling that this is going to be the last ever episode. So I don't know what kind of implies this finality. I don't know if we can cope with, like, a main character death on Christmas Day. But it's going to be really good. And early previews have given it 5 stars. I think the King's Speech at 3 is going to be a good watch. I've noticed it's only 10 minutes this year. In previous years, it's been sort of 15 minutes, so it's obviously going to be short and sweet. Strictly Come Dancing, you a fan of Strictly?
No, I hate it with a passion.
Okay. Avoid Strictly at all costs then. That's on at 3:55. But another really good one to watch, I think, for a family this year is Wallace and Gromit has made a big comeback, and they've got a new film that's also showing on the BBC. So that's going to be quite a good one to watch as well. Soap fans, you know, if you're fed up with all the kind of cheer, they can look forward to some regular misery on Albert Square with EastEnders. And over on ITV, Coronation Street, we see Gail Platt's last ever episode.
That's right over my head, but I'm sure people listening are like, yeah. I've never watched Coronation Street in my life. No. Not one episode. I used to watch EastEnders. Normally, EastEnders would do like some weird live episode, wouldn't they, where someone inevitably ends up falling down a staircase or something.
Yeah, EastEnders is definitely headed for misery. There's always, you know, too much boozing, lots of arguments on Albert Square, which some people really like, actually. They like that it goes a bit dark and gritty. Another thing to look forward to, if you've got Netflix, if you can't be bothered with the main channels, there's a new Taron Egerton movie called Carry On that's being pitched as the new Die Hard. It's set in an airport. It's Christmas-themed, but it's quite an action thriller. So that's meant to be quite good as well, if you fancy something a bit different.
Oh, right. OK, now, apparently we still have the concept of Christmas number ones. I thought the charts had sort of died and gone since everyone just downloads music and listens to drill and stuff and then goes and stabs each other. I didn't realise the nation got together and shared in the same sort of musical interests like we used to do in the good old days. But apparently there is still such a thing as a Christmas number one. And who's going to get it? Or who's got it?
Actually, Alex, you know, to your point, it's really good because it's now all done on streaming services. The old adage of like getting battles between sort of younger artists battling out to get Christmas number one doesn't really exist because it's just done on how many people stream their favourite songs. So, happily, 40 years after its first release, Wham! Last Christmas is Christmas number one. You can't, like, there's nothing better out there, apparently. So it was Christmas number one last year. It's Christmas number one again this this year. And I think it's really good because it's knocked that awful lad baby off the charts.
That's all over my head as well, I'm afraid. Do you know that I remember the days of sort of Christmas number one, and I especially remember that really weird Cliff Richard one. I don't mean Mistletoe and Wine. That was sort of
the Lord's Prayer.
Millennium Prayer. Well done, Tech Up. Yeah, that was. What was that? It was very odd.
It was very odd, but I remember my mum loving it, and it was kind of, we'd bought the single version, and it was on repeat. I might have a listen afterwards just to get a bit of nostalgia. Doesn't get much radio airplay these days, I don't think.
No, you don't hear that one. It's sort of gone to the sort of cemetery in the sky for rubbish records. I can think of a few more that belong up there as well. Hannah, thank you ever so much. It's been really good catching up, and now I know what I'm going to do, what I'm going to delight in while I sort of slump after half a litre of Advocar on tomorrow. I still can't believe that it's tomorrow already.
Yeah. We've got to get back home for that.
Yeah,
come on.
Right, I'm waiting for Christo to come in, by the way, because he's just like, get in here, mate. You're supposed to have been in here already, not just wandering in. There he is. Okay, thanks, Hannah. We had to put Hannah. Bye, darling. We had to put Hannah up full screen there as Christo, because she didn't want to go on hands and knees and crawl under the camera in front of me. And he's just standing by the door, and Hannah's just floating around waiting. I'm like, come on.
You are a tyrant.
Just you wait until I'm Prime Minister.
Things
are going to change.
Actually, weirdly, I think, I don't know whether I've been radicalised, but I think things might be a bit better if you're Prime Minister. But is that because I've had you in my ear hole for so long now that you've radicalised me?
I have radicalised you.
I actually think things would be better.
Yeah, of course it would be.
Certainly, we wouldn't be talking, I feel, about more tax rises if you were Prime Minister. I'm pretty sure that wouldn't be something we are discussing. I'm pretty sure that non-crime hate incidents that are going up, they would not be going up if you were Prime Minister.
Well, you say that, but I would suddenly turn the tables, and anyone who says anything bad about Brexiteers, use of the word gammon, prison for you.
Oh, all right. So there would be an increase in non-crime. Oh, no, they would just be crimes. They would just be crimes.
Because, they don't go there. They don't get sent away. People who say gammon and Karen and call other people fascist scum and Nazis, they're going to become hate crime incidents, and all the others cancelled.
Unfortunately, that would mean that most of the Labour cabinet would have to go to prison.
Unfortunately, did you say?
Well,
that's the plan.
Fine, fair enough. Royal Mail, well, I've got a feeling that they wouldn't be faking their deliveries if you were Prime Minister either. I've a feeling that you'd be out there with them, directing them, telling them where to go.
I would create sort of, a sort of neighbourhood watch of people taking their poodles and their Alsatians out, unleash them from behind the letterbox and chase those that... No, I'm only joking, because I've got a lovely man called Steve, who's a postie, who's messaged me because he's out on his delivery round right now.
So we'll talk about that. Plus, we're going to have the night before Wokemas. So we're going to give you a guide to not getting cancelled this Christmas by making sure that your turkey's vegan, making sure that you don't have any controversial gifts for anyone. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek.
I could tell you a story. I will tell you a story about a controversial gift that someone received at the Brexit Party MEP's Christmas party.